We are getting this flock camera. It's emitting this Connect 36295 Bluetooth signal. It will randomly emit that. You can see it right there. We observed it 32 seconds ago. I can start this back up and you'll see we'll observe it consistently.
It starts with a simple question and ends in objective reality. Through our journey from there to here, we find one another and ourselves. And as the next 24 hours breaks free from our last, we gaze onward in reflection of the day.
Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.
Welcome to the Daily Wrap-Up.
Monday, July 20th, 2026. Thank you for joining me today. Definitely a focus, as you can see from the title. Plenty we could get into around the Iran war and plenty of other conversations that I am going to be touching on. Almost have an entire another show ready for the next one in regard to kind of an continuation of the communism focus, kind of divide and conquer, partisan manipulation, as well as the legislation around Israel combining and the different focuses on that and how it relates to Iran. But today, because of a few points that I really want to make sure we focus on and make sure we don't miss, I want to start with the conversation about ICE and the continuation of where that's going. And you can see how these two stories very clearly work together. And then discuss the technology that they're using and the connections through intelligence through the US, as well as Israel and plenty of other countries that are allowing this unprecedented surveillance state to build around us. But the technology in depth and how we've talked about Flock, and rightly so. Like the awareness around this, even if Flock turns out to be something that was not really what it seemed to be, is still a positive thing to see. It shows you people who are aware of what's happening, people who are upset, even if you think this was sort of a bait and switch, which we'll talk about, around Axon, which we've recently pointed to, and Jason as well, and plenty of others. And I think it's both. Now, we're going to get into what's happening in regard to Flock being removed in a lot of places. It's a very positive story, but how Axon in a lot of ways is simply taking it, filling in the back, filling the role of that contract, and why that's so important. Because even if it was just an organic change, one, it shows you that people are pushing back to the degree that we on a secondary list can make a difference. Now I'm going to get lost in my list, that we can definitely make a difference with what we do. And I think that's important to see. Back to the first list. The second part would ultimately be that even if it is sort of a bait and switch, that it is still important that we're focusing on that it's happening and recognize that Flock's going away, but don't lose sight of what's actually being fought back against. And this is what tends to happen with the partisanship, the government at large. They will create things for us to get distracted with so we don't focus on the way the agenda kind of reestablishes itself. If you go back on just about any conversation, we mentioned ones people are very familiar with, the Smith-Month Modernization Act, even the Patriot Act, where you will find examples of these things being tried before, efforts where congressmen or politicians will try to get something to pass, and then it doesn't happen. For any number of reasons, sometimes it is pushback. And then ultimately it takes the form of some other piece of legislation. Now, it may not look the same, may have a different title, but you'll find that it's the same people, the same funding, the same agenda, and it's all about just trying again and again. And I think that is what this could be. But I really want to stress in the start here that I think that people paying attention to this is such a positive thing. And it will, as always, try to be taken advantage of. Power structures will try to co-opt our awareness and try to use it against us, try to make it look fake, try to drive it into the ground, try to use it to where we start attacking the wrong things. We have to question everything and be on guard. But it's pretty obvious to point out that the cameras and the way they're doing this and many other aspects well beyond and before Flock are unconstitutional. Even just because it took this one for people to start calling that out doesn't mean we don't care about the ones before. We need to start this conversation in all directions. But that's going to be the focus today. The ICE, Gestapo kind of rolling out in front of us. And I mean, literally the definition of a secret police. We're going to get into a clip that we recently pointed to from the Las Vegas airport that turns out to actually have been ICE, or at least that's what they're claiming. And I want to go through why that is such a terrifying reality and how that relates to the larger conversation of secret police, the tech they're using to surveil us, and the larger surveillance apparatus building. And of course, the undeniable connection of Israel throughout all of the tech we're talking about. Now, whether or not I decided to include that, as many people love to make it about somehow over-focusing on Israel, It's there. You can't deny Israel being if any other government in the world, any other country was connected to every single piece of alarming technology that was around one agenda, anybody would go, maybe we should look at that country. But of course, because it's Israel, people tend to distract themselves with partisan, any number of things to stop focusing on what's actually happening. Whether it was China or Russia or anybody else, it should matter to us that a foreign country seems to be completely driving a surveillance overtaking of our country, at the very least is involved with it, secondarily as they commit a genocide. Certainly matters to me. Shouldn't even be facetious about that. The point is, obviously, it matters if a group like this is doing things like this in the world, what they're involved in. Now, to start today, I want to make sure I make a few points just about, where we are, just like 3 or 4 things I want to include that are important to see. Partisan stuff, I guess. Make sure, hold on, I didn't, that's right. This is a point really I wanted you to see about just the current reality. Oh, that's funny. Trying to mention it. There's things going on in the background, as there always are these days. Since I'm bringing it up and I mention it, as I'm having to do something I don't normally have to do, I have to have 2 StreamYard windows open now every time. Have one muted. One's able to bring in the videos. The other one's able to bring it. I'm telling you guys, I've had people who know what this is random. Anyway, while I waste time that I didn't want to waste. Okay, so bringing this up, starting this, I want to make sure we talk about some reality of where our country is. Now, this is important for a lot of reasons. And I really want to stress this is not about partisanship, guys. It's happening right now, but to pretend Trump or anybody only in this administration is responsible for this is just being blind. Even if all the negative things happen in this administration, I don't believe there's a left-right dynamic that's actually deciding this that's unique to partisan agendas more so than as it personally serves them in those positions, if that makes sense. Just my opinion, though. But nonetheless, U.S. debt, which of course was not just Trump, has now exceeded 100% of GDP for the first time since World War II. Now, it's been on a steady incline since about 2005. It's just important to notice, though, despite the claims and the promises, it's not getting any better. In fact, it's higher than it's ever been. That matters, whether it's Iran or any other agenda. Just to show you whatever side you think you're on, your government continues to sell you out. And I think this is about recognizing that the cycle, the left-right hamster wheel, is not your solution to what we're currently dealing with. That's my opinion anyway. Could we see later? The richest Americans have now never controlled this much wealth. The wealth gap in that conversation seems to have been incorrectly deemed some sort of a buzzed partisan talking point. It's obviously relevant in any country in the world. Where the wealth gap divides, that's more of the oligarchy, the elitists continuing to consolidate wealth outside of the hands of the people who they pretend to represent. In this case, we're talking about a point in this country where it's never been this bad, this extreme. Now, you could blame that on Trump if you want. I don't think it's unique to Trump. I think what he's doing is the culmination of a lot of our government, left and right, the plan, flailing agendas, if you will, nonetheless, joint together. And ultimately, what we're seeing is their wealth, the oligarchy of this country continuing to enrich themselves. However you want to look at it, the reality is in the numbers. The wealth of the top 0.00001% of Americans. Oh, 1%, 99%? Yeah, that was a long time ago. If that was ever even the case then, it's far, far less. What this shows you is there's basically no middle class. The 0.00001% of Americans is now up to a record 12% of U.S. national income. National income measures the total income earned across the economy, including wages, business profits, investment income. This percentage has more than quadrupled since the 2008 crisis. The time when they were going to fix the problems that all they did was just triple down on. Look it up. The surge has been fueled by record gains in the equity market and rising real estate prices. Asset owners are the only winners. And what are they doing? Guess what? You own nothing and you've never been happier. Republican version happening right now. Just make sure we saw those things. Now, last 2 points on this. Just random. This is a random account. Somebody that is calling out as a bot. This person says, I'm not a Republican. I'm a MAGA. I may make America great again, because that makes sense. There's a difference. MAGA have no rhinos. And I called this out in the beginning. It was just an extension, a desperate effort, which failed within the fake MAGA movement, which are the people supporting Trump still, to turn the two-party paradigm into just a slightly different version of itself and say we changed it, right? No, it's not two. Now it's the MAGAs and the rhinos and the left. Well, that's just still two parties because you're claiming they work for the same party. It was basic. And I mean, this is showing you they underestimated your intelligence, all of us. This person says you joined December 2025 and have already posted 59,000 times. You have a profile picture that's clearly AI, and all of your tweets are some stupid assortment of buzzwords. All MAGA has left are bots. MAGA is dead. I disagree, and you know this. The point, though, first of all, is about bots. This is what's being presented to you as the MAGA trying to win. Guys, I am convinced, and I know plenty of you think I'm wrong. That's okay. Based on evidence, not my opinion, but opinions included, that we're talking about a grouping of people, the majority, and I keep talking about people that are close to me, people that were like die hard no matter what was happening, even while it was embarrassing, supporting Trump to a fault up until Iran very recently. And now he's telling me literally everybody he knows, people that were going and getting stabbed at these rallies against the Democrat, like legitimate stories, by the way, and vice versa, going out there, like getting in the grid of it, are now going, screw Trump, I'm never supporting him again. Those are people who actually believed in the MAGA movement, not the people still pretending like it's happening who got nothing of what they promised. I've made this point many times. I'm sure it's redundant for those that watch this show on a regular, but it's important. The reason I'm bringing it up now is, one, that I don't think all MAGA has left their bots. I believe the bots are the people of the system trying to convince you that's what MAGA is. And this is not even necessarily support of the MAGA agenda, but just rather that whatever we disagree on, I believe the real movement actually wanted to help this country, even if we don't agree on what that was like, which is why Trump promised them all the things that he thought they wanted and then failed to deliver. In this case, the bots are the ones trying to convince you that that is what MAGA is, a bunch of brainless supporters that have no idea what's happening. And this is what I voted for. That's not what the real MAGA people are saying. And to me, it's clearly the majority out there screaming that they're being lied to, with some of the largest names who I think are more on the opportunist side speaking out in public. But I want to point it out on top of this because I'm worried that a lot of people are being pulled into what is the two-party trap. And I mean people like us that see through it already. In the sense of what I mean is that you're being pulled in to believe that the people that were, it's very easy to stand back and think that everyone's lost in the two-party illusion because it feels that way. And maybe that is the case. I'm of the mind that it's never been less. Less people are trapped in it. But now it's kind of a trap that's a secondary trap, I guess, if you look at it this way, is to convince people like us that everybody in it, the majority, which is not, are like this. So then we look at anybody we think, oh, they're all a bunch of mindless people trapped in the park. It's self-learned helplessness, guys. Recognize the change, the writing on the wall. We can see it happening. These are fake. And that's why the reason I even bring it up is because of this. Unusual Whales points out something that we should all know by now, but it is a real thing. Bot traffic has surpassed human traffic online in the entirety of the internet, according to Cloudflare CEO Matthew Prince. Now, I said it did that a long time ago. That's my opinion, but I think it's very easy to truly see this, especially with what we're now seeing in the what we're talking about here are things they can verify. If you add to the dark, intelligence side of it, guys, this is the dead internet theory when you get into it. I don't believe that's as far as it is. It could be, meaning that there's nothing organic on this anymore other than us engaging with bots, is that this is what we have, is an effort to convince you that this is where they are. At the very least, those that I know disagree with me, but I hope you can respect the difference of opinion and, like I would yours in reverse, just think about it. Consider that that's what we're talking about. And all the system wants is for you to believe that all these people, even though you disagree politically with what they want, the system wants you to believe they hate you, wants you to believe that they only want to do what Trump says. When the truth is they're standing over there looking at you in the same way, thinking, oh, that person just wants what the team wants. And you're both on the same side. When it really matters, even if you disagree on political outcomes, you see the problem in the government. You know how much that scares the power structure? More than you could ever know. That's a point I'm sure go into again in the future. Leaving that, let's start with the focus of today. And the reason I find that so important, guys, is because all of this is what's being hidden by all of that. The shell, the veneer that's over all of this. And most people seem to see through it, but still get trapped on that first delusion. That's my opinion. Now, we just talked about this in the 10th. I'm not going to get into Iran today, but quite frankly, if you watch this show, you'll probably still know what's going on. I'm not making that up. There's a lot new stuff that's happened. It's getting very intense with more bombings and Americans dying, people dying in Iran. The reality, though, is that it's still exactly where we were, where the Trump administration and Israel are they're losing in every discernible way you can verify. They're spinning out. They're lying. Iran continues to seem to have control, including with the Strait right now. Look into it for yourself. I could be wrong, of course. But the reality of it is that you can look back at all they've done and clearly prove to yourself that Trump has been lying repeatedly or being lied to. Very simple. Now, so what we're going to talk about today is Flock, Axon, Defense Sync, and a few other companies, and ICE using those technology, the Israel infiltration, as well as how it's affecting your rights. The Flock revolution we talked about on July 10th. Now, the concern that was expressed here and a few others, which I've touched on almost every show, which I do think it's valid, and now either being vindicated just because of our pushback or maybe because it was always the plan. The concern was simply that why aren't people more suspicious about how much people are talking about Flock? And one thing I said right in the beginning is I'm always suspicious. Anytime there's a focal point, I'm going, okay, let's make sure this is not artificial. Every single time, even if I agree with it, like this. And the point was ultimately that I was seeing this, kind of just overwhelming conversation throughout Twitter and everything else, where it was, when you say being allowed, it's hard to know for sure what is allowed and is not, or what's just sort of, it's hard to know what is like how the system is fully censoring, but we know it is on this platform. It's been caught thousands of times since Elon. My point, though, is that we don't know to what degree. So we see people that you normally wouldn't expect talking about things like this, who are full-on team sports, on the new media side of this, fighting for the establishment, now suddenly going, Flock is bad, and look at all the Flock cameras. And so I get it. People are like, wait a minute, are we being trapped? And you should always ask that question. But recognize, I said before, that when these things are really happening, when people are truly starting to call it out, the system reacts. And what it does, it tries to get you to think it's fake, or tries to get you to look in a different direction, any number of different tactics. Now, that's just a generalized thought about what systems will do. Realize historically you can prove this. You can literally look back and see how things were manufactured to get you to look away from something larger that was happening. Covered it my entire career. In this case, why you had certain people doing that, I think it could be opportunism. It could be because they wanted to make sure you thought they were on your side. Who knows? Don't guess. Shouldn't assume. But the point is that Flock is happening, and it is unconstitutional, and it is connected to everything we're concerned about. So my gut tells me right out of the gate here that this was something that was an organic pushback, was attempted to be co-opted. It sort of failed. And now this is just a step into something new to hopes they can sidestep the focal point of Flock. But we should question whether this was always the plan. So leave it there for now. There's plenty more we'll get to on that general point. I want to start with something in regard to ICE. Remember, the reason I started with Flock is because they're using all this technology, Flock cameras and AI, license plate readers and surveillance and all of this to track down people like this. Now, we just watched this in the last show. It's a guy in the Las Vegas airport but a couple of random people dressed like a bunch of people that you wouldn't even look at them right there. They don't look like police officers or ICE or anything. And you have a TSA guy standing in the way going, enforcement operation. People are going, what's happening? And they just drop and walk away and leave the guy with a handcuff on him. I mean, it's with one. I mean, it's absolutely insane. We're going to watch it again. And what I talked about last time was that, this is crazy because we don't know who they are. Nobody identifies themselves. For all we know, they were human traffickers. And this guy's going operation because they yelled ICE. And what does that create? A circumstance where nobody knows anything. So you don't defend yourself when a mugger comes up because maybe they're ICE, they don't identify themselves, or the idea that if you do react thinking it's a mugger and punch them and then you get shot because they didn't say, and you defended ICE. How are you supposed to know that? You know how the whole system is supposed to work? The law, your constitutional rights. They come up and go, I'm legally required to identify myself. Here's my warrant. That's not happening. So when they break the law and then you respond accordingly within the law, you get shot. Or they create circumstances. I mean, there's a whole conversation to have. What I want to focus on right now is what this creates, because what we're going to find out is that this turns out to have been an actual ICE operation. So keep that in mind when you're watching what a bunch of these thugs were doing without identifying themselves and how they handled the situation. And we're going to follow up on what actually happened.
Oh, what's going on? What's going on?
They do it here. I got the ticket go.
What's going on?
I don't know what they're doing.
What's going on?
I don't know.
What's going on?
Law enforcement.
What's going on? We can still have the right to know what's going on.
Hey, my God.
Everyone back up.
Are you okay?
What are they doing?
Are you okay?
Everyone back up.
Come on.
They literally run off after trying to knock the phone out of his hand. They just bounce. The guy's got handcuffs on. He's literally got one handcuff on one wrist. Is this is authority? I mean, what are you talking about? That's even some kind of protocol violation as far as I know. There is nothing guiding these people. And we have to see that by now.
Come on. Come on.
Oh, what happened?
Who are they? Hey.
That's law enforcement.
Bro, yoke him.
Somebody yells, that's law enforcement. How the hell do you know that? Why would anybody be of the mind that that's law enforcement? And that's just, and secondarily, that's okay? They just grab a random person with hoodies on and masks with no identification, no justification, no process. And because they just said so, yeah, welcome to the police state, guys. That's what happens in a police state. It's all or nothing. They know what they're doing. Shut up. Do you not see that's where we are right now? We have to be aware of this, guys. This is why I was saying this the last show. It's like, we need to start asking ourselves, like, have we lost control of this place? It's not about being hyperbolic. Like, this is the whole point about black pill conversation, where everything we do is about trying to find a solution. So it's not like throwing your hands up and well, we're screwed. That's what black pill means. And my point when I'm saying that, though, is in the future, there may come a point where that might be where we are. And that might be the accurate way to frame this. My point is there is a situation where, so if we're in a point now, not black pilled, in the sense where we're dealing with something where this is beyond where we think it is, it's not hyperbolic to ask, are we there? So realize this. If we're dealing with this in the streets, Americans are being killed. People are being shot, detained, potentially deported with no process. People who are Americans, people who are legally here, people who are in the process of going through their immigration process, which makes them not legally here, but also not illegally here. That's an important distinction, because what are we supposed to say? So what's the right process? To just come up and just magically already have citizenship? Explain for me how that works. Or do you have to go and then go through that process, claiming asylum, or however you look at it? However it happens, if they're in the midst of the process and have already engaged with immigration and left and been going to meetings, and then we see what happens on these videos, that's a crime. I don't care how you think you spin it. They also have constitutional rights, despite the screams of the morons online. This just ends right here.
Bro, that's not cool.
Yes, I mean, so that's not police. I mean, that's the whole point of this video, is to recognize, I mean, I guess assuming that it is actually ICE, because I mean, I honestly wouldn't put it beyond ICE just to lie about that to cover for whatever. I mean, that's what we get from ICE, a bunch of continual dishonesty proven in court over and over and over. I'll show you one of them today, and I've shown you tons already. But I mean, look at these guys, the way look at his face right here. It's just, I mean, I don't even need to explain this grimace, like this, vile, like, anyway, the bottom line is the guys are trying to grab me, tries to smack the phone out of the hand of the guy, which in its own right is supposed to be a crime, but there's nothing to hold people accountable today. Okay. That was Jesus freaking Congress that posted that. Here's the Las Vegas Sun from July 20th. That is today. Viral video shows federal agents abandoning arrest attempt at Harry Reid International Airport. Oh, excuse me, posted the 16th. That's the date from today. This is posted on the 16th. A confrontation involving federal immigration officers at Harry Reid International Airport is drawing attention after a video circulating on social media showed a man being restrained before officers abandoned an attempt to take him into custody. Just the idea of that in general seems so bizarre to me, other than unless we're recognizing that they're just lawless. The reason they cut and run is because they don't want to get held accountable for the way they've how else do you explain that? You guys literally left their handcuffs on this guy. The video shows Phu Nguyen, 57, of Vietnam, frantically yelling and proclaiming, "I don't know what they're doing." When Metro arrived, the local police officers found Nguyen with a handcuff still attached to one of his wrists. Police said their investigation determined that agents with ICE had attempted to detain the man but left before completing the arrest. Why? Because people were watching? You're in the middle of a public airport. Officers ran records checks and found no outstanding warrants because he doesn't have a record. They removed the handcuff and notified ICE and let him go. Interesting. Now, the real question for those that are obsessed with this conversation is, was he an illegal immigrant? Well, of course, it does matter. It is the law. But aren't these the same people talking about all the other things that we need to be dealing with? The Epstein files and all the different things. But this over-focus on people who aren't criminals, who aren't, in many cases, like him, actually breaking the law. It seems this. Now, think about the thing we started with. Do you think Everybody that is blindly obsessive about this without caring about the consequences, without caring about the Constitution, without being concerned with whether people are actually breaking the law, you think that's the actual MAGA movement? Or do you think those are the people that are blindly adherent to whatever Trump is currently doing? I'm sure there's an overlap. I'm sure there's a middle ground in there. I'm of the mind that most of them, even if they want mass, well, here's the thing. It's not crazy to want people who are here illegally to be deported. Now, if you can disagree with the policy and believe that shouldn't even be the way this all works, that should be a conversation. Maybe you're right. But the point is, as it currently is the law, it's not irrational to say, why are they here if they're here illegally? But to then rip through the Constitution and kick American door down to do it, well, yeah, now we're in a problem. But the problem, my point is that most of them were not of this like blind all or nothing mindset, at least is my experience. Like I said, I've got a lot of people that I talk to on a regular basis who are like wearing MAGA hats, guys, like legit, and at this point are never done with Trump forever. So I hear. Now, he was arrested by ICE, by the way, on Tuesday at Los Angeles International Airport. So they literally just followed him along to the next airport and arrested him, probably in the exact same fashion. ICE said Nguyen had overstayed his visa. You see what I'm talking about, guys? And he was taken into custody as soon as he landed in Los Angeles. He had attempted, and this is what they wrote, adding that agitators, you mean Americans who are doing nothing wrong, but in fact honoring, they're within their constitutional rights by filming a public space and officers conducting an operation. Agitators? Do you realize how crazy it is that people just acknowledging that what you're doing is like, you're in the middle of an airport, you see two random people without identification who are dressed like randoms accosting a guy, and you go, hey, what's going on? And now you're an agitator. You see, it's like, so what are you supposed to assume? That they just have to be ICE when somebody's getting mugged? It just is insane. And of course, as the main point today is, it opens the door for anything. As I just showed you, I think there was like 30 documented cases of people robbing, getting raped, getting dressed up like ICE and abusing women, dressing up like ICE and robbing people, because that's what this creates. You know how they could easily avoid that? Following their laws and identifying themselves and showing warrants. I know, crazy, right? But those Democrats, I can't believe people that are stupid enough to fall for that. Even if it's accurate, whatever you think that means, your answer is to violate their rights, then you don't believe in the Constitution. And this is my point. I don't believe that's a real majority, guys. It exists, trust me, but I'm telling you, we're being played. So he had overstayed his visa. And these agitators attempted to help him evade ICE officers at the Las Vegas airport. Is that what happened? They were just observing. As far as I could tell, nobody even got involved. They were just going, hey, what are you doing? This is crazy. And they just took off. It's the kind of action immigration advocates are warning needs to be rectified. That's a very light way to write that. Advocates last week urged state legislation banning law enforcement officers from wearing masks, requiring them to identify themselves. Like, it's a crazy way to even report this as like requiring, it's like you're asking them to do something that needs to be changed. This is the current reality. U.S. Senator Jackie Rosen from Nevada posted on social media that ICE's actions are, quote, instilling fear in our communities and scaring tourists, which hurts our tourism economy. My God. And this is my point. This is the Democrat from the other side of the one government we're talking about. So the same thing, who are going, we don't really want to even comment on the objectively obvious violations of constitutional rights. That doesn't even matter. Not even worth comment. But our tourism industry, God, we got money, I mean, just realize where they focus. Scaring tourists. Are you kidding me? How about the fact that it's a massive violation of rights or completely illegal or antithetical to everything we pretend this country represents? But no, tourism money, which is the reality. She continued, enough is enough. ICE must follow the same common sense guardrails as other law. Common sense guardrails, yeah. So basically by answering, you're going, they need to just do what we ask as opposed to going, what they're doing is a criminal act. See my point? They need to follow the same common sense guardrails, or you mean the laws that they're breaking out. This is what you get. False resistance. And so you go, oh, well, somebody's calling him out. No, that person doesn't care. That congressman wants to look like they care and never really do anything about it. Go over the top of them. Do something. I don't mean violence. Do something political, whatever you think makes the difference. Go out there and take action, because these people half-heartedly going, maybe they should do what they're supposed to do, is not going to change anything. Pointing out they broke the law and arresting those officers, that would do something. But you have to go beyond the political bar here. Now, continuing, as I showed you, ICE was literally saying this by agitators, despite attempts by agitators to help him evade ICE. You saw the video. That's how ICE lies, right? Then that's a small one. Talk about lying, pretending you're beaten with a shovel when that never even happened. Saying you're being shot at when nobody even had a gun. Saying you were being hit by cars when in fact you were the one that surrounded them. I mean, I've got 30 examples of that I could show you right now in my ICE file, right now. I've shown all of them on the shows since this really started. Now, in another example, and again, not just to make sure that carries through this, what that creates is a situation where people don't know what's happening. That next time a guy comes up with a mask and a white hoodie, you're supposed to go, oh, are you ICE? Am I going to get raped or robbed, or is this enforcement? I'm not even sure, right? That is what this creates. And apparently, if you ask, well, now you're an agitator, right? If you ask why your rights are being violated, now you get shot. This is where this goes. Now, I'm being slightly hyperbolic, but not really. If we can see what keeps happening, and you can see how these people have been, almost purposely not trained, hiring people that are mentally unstable. I mean, it's creating this, which part of me wonders if that's by design. Now, I'm not going to go into that. Just my opinion. You know what I mean if you watch the show on the regular. Aaron Melnick. Now, by the way, somebody who is obviously I got into it with somebody, by the way, who I pointed out in the past. I thought did amazing work during COVID. I'm surprised by some of the exchange, but I'm hoping I'm misunderstanding some of it. The bottom line is he's obviously partisan. And I've seen them post like anybody in this field that overshadows some things and how super focuses on others because of partisanship. It's not about the person, guys. Despite the fact that he's been right a lot around this conversation, the bottom line is that when you look at their opinions versus the statements of fact and source material, of course, consider it's flavored with that. My point in this, which I think is important, is that their own document, which I have right here, literally challenges what they said about this story when they first talked about it. And this is almost every time in my experience. So he writes, ICE admits now that the best case scenario, and this is the one where they shot the guy who died on the street recently, and the car drifted over and ran into something. The best case scenario for them, based on their testimony, is that ICE officer who shot Lorenzo in the chest ran up to a moving vehicle and shoved his arm into the passenger window and opened fire. And what was the argument? That he was trying to hit him with their car. Kind of hard to do that when the guy's having to reach in, running after you, shooting in the window, which is what people watching testified to. No vehicle weaponization, no effort to run anyone down. Now, my point in showing this was only to say, look at what they said, and here's what they originally said. Now, here's what their new testimony is. I don't care if you think it's justified or not. You have to acknowledge ICE just freely lies about these things when they're first speaking about it. Now, he also writes in response to this guy who says, you have to appreciate the storytelling. Ran up to a moving vehicle makes it sound like he ran into traffic for no reason after an illegal was fleeing. Is that what happened? He goes, okay, and that justifies shoving a gun inside a moving vehicle? You see how deranged this gets? Okay, let's say you have an illegal alien who's literally here illegally, who you know is here illegally, and you're going up to the car, and he starts to drive away, which we've seen happening. ICE will open fire. They've done it numerous times, and that's why they make up a story. Why would you be okay with that? Even if he's a criminal, you just execute him in the street. Who cares if there's innocent bystanders who might get shot, like we keep saying? It's an imbalance, guys. Yes, if it's a crime, arrest him. But first of all, we should be able to know that for sure, and not just ICE going, that's the guy. They've been wrong before. Like police can be and have been a lot in the past. So even if they think it's the guy, what if it's a flock camera? They got it wrong. Like, you have to understand there's a reason for process. And this is what I think most Americans know, even if some of them got wrapped up in all this to start. They're starting to recognize they were wrong, guys. It's just obvious. So the point in this, and you can read for yourself, is that the person, literally, as they said, fired a single shot. The round struck him. It says the group, where was it? During this confrontation between, he attempted to flee. One of the officers fired a single shot. Where was it? Right here. While the officer was partially inside the van or immediately next to it. Now, that's their testimony from the DOJ. And that contradicts what they originally said. The bigger part for me over all this than just being dishonest, after nearly 35 years of working to give us the American dream, he made the choice to begin the process of obtaining his American dream through a work permit. Now, whatever you want to argue about, I'm not justifying people who are choosing to work this their own way or break the law and whatever the process is. They went through it. Okay, they dotted every I, crossed every T, filled up documents, attended every appointment. So that means he's going to appointments with immigration. At this point, that he's in the process. Now, if you guys allow, he's going through the legal process of becoming an American. He was close to obtaining his legal status, and this happens. Now, also remember that in both the cases we recently discussed, they weren't even there to go after these people. So what you end up with is a circumstance where somebody ultimately gets killed while they're in the process of getting the immigration, getting their legal status the very way that ICE claims they're trying to avoid. Meanwhile, you've got murderers and rapists and whoever else, drug dealers who Trump's pardoning, or people getting shipped away to other countries, or ultimately not even being focused on. The worst of the worst is the last thing they're actually going after. Anybody honest themselves can already verify this, guys. So it matters to me if people are breaking the law, but it also matters to me if you're just executing people in the streets who are in fact going through the legal process you require of them. And even the person you were focusing on, and ultimately, it's an endless story, guys. Endless story. Here's a new one. Same conversation. And this one's even worse, by the way, because we're talking about the mother of a U.S. veteran. Okay. Now, same story. Wasn't the one they were looking for. Detained her. And then ultimately, the bottom line was because she is going through this process. And I'll show it to you next. But does it matter that she doesn't have a criminal record? Does it matter that, it obviously does. Or the fact that this guy fought for the American military. It's amazing what people will choose to ignore when they have an agenda. Now, this, by the way, is from a Hispanic channel. So you'll find that it's a Hispanic person speaking English. And then in some cases, it's English over the top. But just either way, that's explaining that for the podcast. It's a Spanish channel.
Driving alone. I just heard them yelling at me. And well, yes, I got scared because they were hooded and they were yelling at me. I mean, they didn't ask for my ID. They didn't ask for anything. They just told me, get out.
Okay. Here we are again. So now what are you supposed to do? After what we just saw, you're in the street, hooded random people come up, not identifying themselves. Now understand, we're getting to the point where they're not even looking like ICE agents, like we just saw, because they're now trying to avoid our attention. I wonder why. Hoodies and sweatpants, right? Hypothetically, I can't confirm that's what this case was, but we just saw one. So just in a hypothetical conversation, this woman's they run up to you and they step out of the car, like they did with Ozturk, by the way, when they accosted her on the street and she had no idea who they were and they grabbed her arms. What are you going to do? So in this case, let's say she suddenly pulls her legal firearm out and starts to, well, guess what? Now you're going to go to prison for the rest of your life if you don't die because they reactively shoot you, even though they never identified themselves. Why wouldn't you defend yourself? You have no idea what's happening. If only an absolute moron and a dishonest person can't see the logic of what I'm saying. And how do you not recognize why that's dangerous, as well as the fact that they're doing things that they're not doing what they're supposed to do, which creates that situation. The entire onus is on the U.S. government and the way they're conducting this. And on top of that, they're not even following through what they promised they were going to do. Because guess what, guys? As we get to Flock, it's not even about the immigrants. It's about you. And everyone is starting to realize this. So, continues.
These events took place on the streets of Redwood Road and 650 South in Salt Lake City, where in a matter of hours, she had already been fast-tracked for deportation to Mexico. One of her two sons, Francisco Carrillo, a former member of the United States Navy, tells us about some of the threats his mother received during her detention.
One thing that's deeply troubled me is that they told my mother that if she didn't sign the paper, they were gonna make her disappear.
Which we've heard before, right? We have examples of people in ICE deporting somebody and then getting caught with their car a month later. Just absolute criminality. And nobody seems to care in the administration, not with Mark Wayne stupid there now. It's just an embarrassing reality of people that are getting worse and worse. That's got to be one of the dumbest people I've ever seen. And beyond Bondi and Gnome, I still so wish I did that segment that I had planned for him. I just got busy with other things. You go back and look at some of the things he said. That guy there's a reason he's there right now, guys. The point though, it's just, this is a borderline setup.
My fear was so great because, as I say, they were hooded, and I had already seen on the news that they had killed a person. Says that their mother, who had been in the United States for 25 years, never has a criminal record and has always been extremely hardworking, holding jobs in cleaning and even in construction.
My mom has no criminal records. Obviously, they looked at her and attacked her. She was a victim of discrimination.
That's their opinion, obviously, but seems that way.
They checked my pants pockets. I had money on me, about $240. They stole it from me. They did not return my money.
Of course not.
And her son Francisco says he is very disappointed in what this country did.
Yep, there he is. Fighting for the American empire. This is what they do to people that actually fight. It's no different than any other empire, guys. They don't care about you. That's what we need to realize.
So much has become.
And seeing this makes me very sad because I served my nation. And look at how they treated my own mother. It is an anchor that I will never forget when I gave everything.
The United States, as it was once called the American dream, is now an American nightmare.
Well, this is not an uncommon story right now, guys. And again, in case you still don't know, or you're believing stupid people online, the truth is that anybody, even an illegal alien, as the Supreme Court and many of justices have personally stated, have constitutional rights. There's different variations for certain circumstances and extremes, but especially green cards and visa holders. There's very small, like, again, even arguably like the national security parts would arguably be unconstitutional. The bottom line, though, is that there are small things for very extreme circumstances like terrorism. Wonder why they're trying to create that circumstance. The point, though, is they have all the free speech, everything else we could go down the list of, right? The right to be doing to not be accosted and searched. In this case, they don't care. And not only are they violating those rights, they're now choosing to go even further and not even identify themselves. Military mother is deported. She got deported from Salt Lake City to Mexico despite having no criminal record. Guess what? She was in the middle of her process. A few months after being able to fix her immigration status, that was in process. I mean, why doesn't this matter to anybody? She's going through the legal process they're supposed to be going through, and she doesn't have a criminal record, and yet you let a bunch of MS-13 members go back to El Salvador, you pardon a drug trafficker, you literally seem to be ignoring the biggest parts of this problem. And I'm not just talking about Trump, by the way. It's the same old thing around. Now, Joe Walsh, somebody who is clearly partisan, and the reason I think I'm pointing that out for this clip, because I really just want to point out the George Redis clip, which is important. It's important to see something. I think you're going to find a few people. I think another one is the count that I might have today, Republicans against Trump or whatever, who will call out certain things, right? Who will be all about a certain topic. In this case, Joe Walsh is clearly, in my opinion, correct about the ICE reality and what they're really doing, but then is completely partisan blinded when it comes to many other topics. It's all over the place. Now, at least that's in my perspective, but it's infuriating. But I just want you to think about that just because somebody is partisan, I don't necessarily mean team sport, but who knows? I don't know their mind. But just because someone is doesn't mean that they're inherently wrong when it comes to a topic, or that if they're right, that you ignore it because they're partisan. That's part of the trap, guys. It's just about data. It's about information. So as he writes, I've been showing you this. I've been reporting about his story for a long time. He's a U.S. veteran. He's an American citizen, as you'll hear him tell you. This was right in the beginning of this. They arrested him. They didn't even care. In fact, they laughed at him. They held him for 3 days, despite him identifying himself as a veteran and a U.S. military and a American citizen. Explain that for me. If people actually cared about this, which most of us seem to do, this would be called out. For those that don't, there's a different agenda there. But he simply says, I smashed the window. I'll let him speak for himself. This is fascism, he says. Well, you can call it communism, you can call it fascism, you can call it, government in my mind. Yep, correct. It's what government does. Left, right, same old thing to me. It always ends up in this position. But here's what he said. And this is an important story because this is one of the most clear-cut examples of them choosing to disregard that he's an American citizen. I guess because he has brown skin. I mean, I don't even know how else to explain this.
My job as a security guard at a licensed farm in Camarillo, California. Federal immigration agents were lined across the road leading to the farm. I identified myself as a U.S. citizen and a veteran, but that didn't matter. Agents smashed my window, sprayed tear gas and pepper spray into my car, dragged me out. I was choking on gas, unable to breathe, while officers shouted conflicting commands even after I complied.
Yep, every time.
They pinned me down, one kneeling on my back.
I honestly think to some degree that's by design. You're creating a circumstance for you to just act with violence. Now, you may think that's crazy, but from my opinion, there's an agenda to creating fear. This, like we just talked about, with these nameless, faceless agents. So you just comply. I don't think it's working, but it's certainly trying.
And another kneeling on my neck while my hands were already behind me. I was first taken to a Navy base where agents collected my DNA, and after that, I was taken to a detention center and held for 3 days without charges. No phone call, no lawyer, no medical care, even though my skin burned from the chemicals. I wasn't allowed to shower.
How does anybody, I mean, guys, this is an ongoing story. They lied about it. And that's the most important part. Second most important part. He got let go and he was screaming about this. What did you get from Bondi and Nome and Bovino and all the rest of these clowns? They called him a terrorist, guys. They literally called him a terrorist. It doesn't change. It's the same thing they do with anybody, and all the lackeys clap. It's how this works. I don't think it's the majority. He's an American and a U.S. veteran. It honestly shouldn't matter about any other human being who's being accosted like this unjustifiably. But it should. But it seems to matter more for certain people within this country. So make sure you understand. He is not a unique circumstance. He's just one of the most obvious that they can't deny, even though they still do. That's what's crazy. Now, this is just an interesting one I wanted to include just to show you where we are in this country with enforcement. Now, this is a very recent one. I was actually looking at this yesterday. This is a longer clip that just came out. I'm expecting there to be something written up on this today, tomorrow, because it's insane. And what I think it comes down to, and you're going to hear her explain herself. This clip speaks for itself. This woman cop is like handshaking, terrified. And I don't think it's because she's new. I just don't get that sense, but you can decide. The bottom line here is that you have a couple of guys who are electricians who are working. And they ultimately tell you in the video that we've had a shooting and we're just kind of locking you down. And they handcuff them and threaten them, even though they don't even suspect them, or at least they don't claim to, of being involved in the shooting. I want to highlight this is where we are in this country. We're at a point now where this is where authority has gotten to. It's rampant lawlessness. Like there is nothing holding people accountable, it seems. If they're looking over there and watching these people get away with it, why don't they go, hey, I'm going to do it too? Because right now there's no interest in this administration from having any kind of accountability in the police force because, I mean, who knows what their logic is? It makes them look weak. I don't know. It's clearly where they are right now. So check this out, and you tell me that we're not in a bad state right now. And these aren't the secret police. These are the regular police.
Yes!
We just here working, ma'am. That's it. I only have tools on me.
He's got those Google, what are they? The glasses recording on. That's what the story said.
Turn around.
Which way?
This way.
Just secure them for now. I got you. I got you covered. Secure them.
Get on your back.
Until we figure out what's going on.
On my back?
On your stomach, sorry.
On your stomach.
On your stomach, sorry. You're fine.
This is
secure you.
Even just getting started with this. Until we know what's going on. Like, do you realize, I don't care. This is what they keep. This is where this goes. Same with hospitals, where you get to this point to where it's like, well, it's just too serious. Like, we have to do what we have to do. That's not how that works. That means you don't know what you're supposed to do. The bottom line is we have rights that supersedes everything. Or you disagree, then make that case. Most Americans don't disagree with that. So we're at a point now where they don't know what's going on, so they come up and just violate the rights of these two men. Why? Even if you think they're suspects, that's not how you handle this. You just, the bottom line is they have tough jobs, guys. That's the point. You could do it if you want or not. Just the idea that you don't just rationalize why they should violate your rights. You know that that's a line that is not crossed, and you find out what should be done. In this case, they just go way further than this. And all they know is that we don't know what's happening. Now, imagine you were in that situation. Now, imagine they didn't have identifiables that came up in hoodies and started pointing guns at you. What would you do then?
Covered, secure them.
Get on your back.
Until we figure out what's going on.
on my back?
On your stomach, sorry.
On your stomach.
On your stomach, sorry.
Yeah.
You're fine.
This is
secure you.
You're not under arrest.
You're not under arrest. Just detained. There's a shooting.
You're not under arrest. You're detained. What? Based on what? You don't just randomly detain somebody. What am I being charged with? What am I being detained for? That's not the law. They don't even know that. I'm going to play that again. Oh, there's been a shooting. So you just arrest us because there's been a shooting? This is where our country is right now, guys. This is alarming, and it's not unique to one location. I think we're all starting to see that.
I got you covered. Secure them.
Get on your back.
Until we figure out what's going on.
On my back?
On your stomach, sorry.
On your stomach.
On your stomach, sorry. You're fine.
This is
secure you.
You're not under arrest.
You're not under arrest. Just detained. There's a shooting.
Yeah, I understand.
Officer, there's no shooting.
Yeah, we just bystanders. I didn't know you get cuffed up for being a bystander.
Be quiet.
Be quiet.
Please. You're not making it easier.
I'm just working though, ma'am, and you treating me like I got something to do with it.
Please.
It's already bad enough for my skin is color.
Can you just sit down here? Okay, can you just sit against the wall? Please, scoot yourself over.
This is crazy.
I mean, someone in the chat saying, Laurel saying sounds like she's new. Certainly could be. That's kind of the general consensus, that she's just done new. Doesn't change the reality. But there's just parts in this that make me feel like there's something else. Just my gut. Like maybe she might be new, but like maybe just the seriousness of the circumstance. Oh, there's a shooting. We don't know what's happening. I don't know. But watch how it goes. It's wild.
Hey, sit still.
She told me to scoot over there.
That's fine.
Yeah. What y'all want me to do? Ah, okay. Y'all confused and y'all look scared like y'all don't know who y'all want to shoot, dang. I'm just working.
Hey, handcuff him. Hey, it's all right. Handcuff him.
Seriously.
Handcuff the second guy. We're good.
I need your badge number, man. This is crazy. I need your badge number, ma'am. This is crazy.
Also supposed to be legally, that's, obviously, you don't run up in the middle of some serious event and badge number, but at the end of the day, they are required to give their badge number identification, and they rarely do it.
Your crime. There's 2 officers that are shot. I need you police to be cooperative and have some fucking dignity.
I can.
Okay. So there's been police that have been shot. So be cooperative and have some dignity. And see my point? Yeah, I guarantee there are people out there that go, oh, a policeman was shot, so nothing matters. They don't care about your rights. Those people, I don't care how serious you think it is, there is no line in which you just go, oh, pause those for now, because seriousness. That will become anything they want, which is what we're dealing with right now. That's how this works, guys. If you're in a situation where they circumvent your rights because of fill in the blank, then those things don't exist in their mind.
Talk though, man. I'm just working.
Those fucking cops that will show you how to talk.
That's not a joke.
We just bystanders. I know it's already bad enough for my skin in this cup.
The wall, please.
Dude. Ah, okay, y'all. Just working.
Hey, handcuff
him.
Hey, it's all right.
Those fucking cops that will show you how to talk.
Yeah, welcome to the police state. I mean, look, you could always make about, you could make the same point, for example, about people who show one video of a black guy getting a fight or a white guy getting a fight and go, oh, it's everybody. That's stupid. This is not the same point. You could obviously point out as one example of one crazy lady. Certainly could be the case. We are all watching this happen in daily live stream reality in this country. I'm not just talking about violence. I'm talking about the violation of protocol, the violation of legal norms and just the constitutional rights, the law. That's what's happening. And it's very obvious. That's just an individual example of somebody like that just losing their minds and, probably nothing happening. We'll see. As I said, there'll probably be something that's written up on this. I'd like to believe. Now here is Mark Wayne Mullen. Just a few examples we just saw. There's been at least 2 or 3 shootings just over the last week. And this is clearly being focused on again, rightly so. And so Ron Flipkowski just says, you're just another low IQ thug in a Trump suit who can barely speak coherently. I completely agree, by the way. It's not about left and right. It's a fair observation about the clowns in the suits today, presiding over an agency that murders people routinely while he covers it up. This is why he was chosen, guys, just like Kash Patel and Bongino and Noam and Bondi. They're people that would never find their way into this position, so they will do anything. And they'll potentially go to jail. Look at Noam and Bondi. I mean, they've already been shoved aside. How embarrassing is all of this? So here's what he actually said, though.
In our elections, but just first, since you mentioned turning down the temperature, what assurances can you give Americans that ICE officers will face consequences if they violate the DHS's use of force policy? And who will make that determination?
So the question was very clearly, will they be held accountable if they violate policy, the law? Not the same thing, but just that's the general question.
And can you commit now to making that determination public?
Let me clarify. When I say turn down the temperature,
and commit to making that determination in public. That's the question. Watch how he answers.
Let me clarify. When I say turn down the temperature, when I turn down the temperature with you guys, we're turning up the heat on the streets.
What does that even mean? Turning down the temperature with the media, who you sort of kind of yell as much? But we're going to turn up the heat. So while everything's going insane and we're murdering Americans and immigrants alike in the street, we're going to turn up the heat because that's what he was told to do. Because that's what the Roy Cohen sort of dynamic that people have gotten familiar with. It's just double down, sue, lie. That's what they do. I mean, have you not been paying attention? And the only difference this administration is they're just so either bad at it or they're so drowning in lies that nobody can miss it at this point. It worked before because the tactic can work when you've got power. They've got power. They're just flailing. Who knows why? I've got plenty of examples and points I could make, but it's not even the point to get into right now. The point is everyone's paying attention. And that's why he did. No, we're going to go kill more Americans. It might as well be your answer.
We're out there working harder than we ever have because we've empowered our law enforcement to do their job.
Oh, have you? You mean, and do your job, you mean breaking the law and violating your own policy? Like, what a clown. Like, what a stupid answer when what the whole focus is on these people violating your own policy of your own agency. I don't even know if he even understands what he's talking about, like, or what the reality is.
What I'm trying to do is remove us from the headlines every single day.
Oh, okay. Now we understand. We're going to make it even worse for them. We're going to turn up the heat. We're just going to make sure that you guys don't talk about it. You realize how clumsy it is that he literally, basically just said that. This is the stupidity of people like this. They don't even realize they're being transparent when they think they're being crafty because he's not a smart guy. So we're going to, no, I meant you guys, right? So we're going to keep it out of the headlines. Oh, I get it. So we're going to play it ball with you and make sure you guys don't talk about the crimes you're committing. Well done, Mark.
But everybody will be held accountable. I don't pick and choose which laws I'm going to enforce.
You mean aside from literally doing that every day? Aside from that being the literal focus of the question. And your answer is, we're not going to do anything different, but I'm going to follow the law, even though the question is, why aren't you following the law? Yeah, you're dumb, man. You're not very bright. I think at the end of the day, these are the people they put there so they can be scapegoats.
I enforce our nation's laws. That means I'll enforce it with our own agency, and I'll enforce it with the criminals on the streets. That's my assurance.
Nope.
Yes.
Neither are actually happening, if you really break it down. That's what's so alarming about this. But yeah, but put the guy in there who will be easy to get rid of. And of course, he's the smartest, best guy in the world when he's there. But then when he leaves, it's easy to go, yeah, he was pretty bad. He's stupid. He wasn't educated. He didn't have the policy. It wasn't meritocracy, you know. Every time. Go down the list of people that leave, suddenly all the fake MAGA, all the people that are blind team sport politics, you'll find their old, this is you keeps doing that. You'll find their old tweet where they're like, oh my God, this person was the best I've ever seen. And now it's going to be a great country. And then they leave and they go, they were never good. And Trump always knew. It's like, okay, pick one. They're hypocrites, guys. They're dishonest about everything. That's the game. I don't believe it's most. Now, Mehdi Hasan also points out it's getting grimmer and grimmer every day. No due process, just total authoritarian and unprecedented anti-migrant acts. And what this is, from Kyle Cheney reporting, the Trump administration has activated a secretive and never before used illegal process to quickly deport foreign nationals deemed to be alien terrorists or their immediate family members, or that we think might be connected, or maybe that they just talked to him that day. You know, that's where this goes, guys, which is what they're already doing. This is real. So with what we've already seen, with people being borderline sent to El Salvador who were Americans, right, before the court stepped in, that's a real story. Some, children already being sent overseas, multiple innocent people being sent, some of which never came back from El Salvador. The main story is all of them they picked, Ozturk, Khalil, Garcia, lost all of them because they lied about all of them. But now we're going to let them just rapidly deport somebody because they claim they're a terrorist. How is that not the exact? It's the exact same story. So what you're getting is what we just talked about, doubling down. So we all catch you doing illegal things and literally trying to deport people who criticize Israel. And your answer is to just make a new law that says you can do that. That's the American government for you guys. That's the U.S. government. That is what they're known for. Modernization Act or whatever else, fill in the blank. We'll make a law that says we can do the thing that you don't like. Now it's all good, right? This is where we are. I mean, that's insane, guys. You don't need some new quick process to do something that this is to get around people who are pushing back against people that shouldn't be deported. Not the rapists and terrorists and muggers they talk about, bopping grandmas on the head. No, we're talking about a grandma who never broke the law in her entire life in this country, who was going through the legal process, and now she's in a foreign country. Luckily, Mexico, maybe not El Salvador in CCOT, but, this is the reality of where we are. Now, I already talked about this in April 1st, 2025. Trump deportations revealed to be full of innocent people. That was in 2025. Legal immigrants with no criminal record, like we just showed you. In many cases, not in the process, people who had literal visas, green cards. They didn't care. That was in the midst of it when it was all in the height of it. Now, they're not doing as much now. Maybe they're starting up again. This one was from May 4th, 2025. Amendments stopping deportation of U.S. citizens voted down. Yeah, no big deal. It's not like we completely see where this is going. And then this was October 31st, 2025. DHS lies about detaining and deporting U.S. citizens. Oh, of course, back in 2025, October, Trump, right, reportedly readying to attack Venezuela. As usual, watch this show. You'll find that you're far ahead of most stories. Not bragging, just demonstrating our value. You can look for yourself and prove it to yourself. Now, before I get into this, let me see if I have this clip really quickly, just because it's worth hearing again, since we're on this topic, to understand that this is really not a new story. Let's see. I think I have a compilation here. I think this is the one right here, or at least a couple of them. And this is where we're heading. Even though there's kind of a lull, this is where it seems to be heading.
That you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens, fully naturalized Americans?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What do you think they're?
Yeah. Okay, so all he really did there, as he sought out the worst thing he could think of, is Americans will get deported if they break the law. That's the equivalent. That's the principle there, guys. That's it. If he decides that law is bad enough, well, yeah, why not? What are they special? No, they're like anybody else has constitutional rights. You guys are just stupid about it or don't care. The reality would be an American who rapes somebody, does whatever, there's a crime. They should be charged for that crime. Same with anybody else, green card, visa holder. The problem here for American citizens to highlight is that he's willing, at least he said in multiple times, I'll play on the video, that there is no line, that there's not that you can be removed if he decides. And then wait till he hands that power over to the side you think is only focusing on you, even though the truth is they both are. My point was Democrats will get it and then they'll go after Republicans. It's obviously all of them against all of us. But if you see it that way, it will come too.
Special category of person.
You said this morning 20 years in jail and then maybe they'll go to one of these prisons in El Salvador. Do you think with the way that the judges have been issuing injunctions, it would be easier or harder to send these Tesla domestic terrorists to a jail in El Salvador than these MS-13 or Trendy arrival guys?
Yeah, the Tesla terrorists, because that's a continuing group, right? The ongoing Tesla terrorists that are threatening the country, or was that a couple of examples of Teslas being attacked, and so they turned it into a propaganda story to fight for Elon Musk, who's barely even being talked about right now? Why can't the average, well, really, I know most people see this, at least that's what I believe, but why can't some of the more ardent supporters recognize those kind of dishonesties? They just play you, guys. They play you every day. And I know a lot of people are starting to see it.
View these people as terrorists just like others.
Could we use it for violent criminals, our own violent criminals?
I call them homegrown criminals.
Yes.
I mean, the homegrowns. The ones that grew up and something went wrong and they hit.
Yeah, like he put any thought together that, it's like, yeah, that's what I call them. It's this homegrown. No, you randomly had that thought in the middle of an interview and then just been carrying it forward since. It still means American, bud.
People over the head with a baseball bat. We have, and push people into subways just before the train gets there, like you.
Yeah, so those two weird classes, get them out of here. It's just the dumbest thing in the world. They are still Americans and they still have rights. And it doesn't matter what level of crime is committed. The point is that that's not how this goes. You don't just start deporting people based on, that's what he's creating. And that's why he makes it the worst examples. Or, just writing a paper about Israel's genocide. As for Ozturk, they tried.
See happening sometimes. We are looking into it and we want to do it. I
would want to do it, he said.
Unfortunately, I'd like to say, a little controversial, but I couldn't care less. We have a lot of bad criminals that came into this country, and they came in stupidly. It was an unforced error. It was an incompetent president that allowed it to happen. It was
as usual.
An auto pen maybe that allowed it to happen, and it did happen.
Oh, yeah.
But we also have a lot of bad people that have been here for a long time. People that whack people over the head with a baseball bat from behind when they're not looking and kill them. People that knife you when you're walking down the street. They're not new to our country. They're old to our country. Many of them were born in our country. I think we ought to get them.
Born in the country. Can't miss that.
Them the hell out of here too. You want to know
the hell out of here.
Maybe that'll be the next job that we'll work on together.
Yeah. So how long until you're the one?
In some respects, it's just as bad now, the authoritarianism that is coming, Gerald. I am really, really fearful for the President of the United States of America to suggest, as he did on Air Force One on Sunday night, that American citizens could be deported, for his press secretary to say, we're looking into a way to see if this is legal. We don't know if it's legal or not.
Truly or not.
A, is terrifying. B, betrays such a profound ignorance of first principles to which he is sworn. He is sworn to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and to enforce federal law.
You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens, but are criminals, to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens, fully naturalized Americans?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head.
Coming. Profound.
If they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What, do you think there's special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones, too.
Profoundly un-American, utterly unconstitutional, and I'm sorry to say, is coming.
Yeah, I happen to agree. I mean, I just don't see, the logic is there. It lines up with everything else. Could be wrong. Well, here is Jen and Eunice pointing out the ADC National, the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, has filed a lawsuit on behalf of Max Blumenthal against the DHS, who last week, upon his return from the U.S. with a trip to Iran to cover the funeral of the Ayatollah of Khomeini, California Border Patrol seized his smartphones, saying they intended to extract data from him. On what grounds? They don't need any, guys. Welcome to the police state. Because rationalization, national security. This occurred, they write, after Laura Loomer, a prominent, that's very generous, prominent, yes, but clearly for reasons I think largely because of people can't, or she's like watching a train wreck, by the way. But after Laura Loomer, a prominent associate of President Trump, demanded, what she did, that Max be arrested for having the audacity to do journalism. Now, whatever you think it was, whether he just went there because he wanted to or because he went there to cover it like he said he did. Now it's illegal to go to a foreign country because they disagree with, yep, that's the point, guys. Freedom of, like, everything this country pretends to represent, these people scream they don't believe in and then go, America first, freedom, liberty, democracy. Like, they're clowns. I don't even think they realize it in themselves sometimes. Border Patrol's conduct raises grave First Amendment, Fourth Amendment concerns, as well as the violations of the Privacy Protection Act. Guys, they violated his rights no matter how you spin this. He didn't break the law. He wasn't charged with a crime. They literally stole his devices and, tried to search information from it after Loomer, of all people, says, get him. What does that show you? It might not even be about Trump. Loomer clearly is fighting for something larger than this country. The bottom line to me is that if you care about rights, if you care about any of this stuff, freedom of the press, this should be impossible to defend. But of course, you'll find plenty of clowns on this platform who laugh it up because he went to Iran. Because they're the adults in the room, we're told, right? Now, one quick point to include in this: suspect in custody after starting fire outside New York federal building. FBI says, turns out, you might have seen this today going around, it was an Army soldier, according to the FBI, or former Army soldier. He basically put some kind of a fire, like fireworks, nothing like a bomb, but it was like a fireworks kind of thing, in front of the New York building housing immigration court and other government offices. Now, who knows if it's the immigration court that was the focus or not, but the bottom line was he did this. We'll find out, I'm sure, in the future what his intention was, but you have a U.S. veteran who is doing this to the government. Like, this is a common story right now. Now, can you guess what they said about this U.S. veteran who put his life on the line for Americans, as we're told? He's an anti-American, anti-government extremist. Yeah, maybe. But what's crazy about this is how we end up in a position where anybody fighting back against an authoritarian power is suddenly a terrorist. Hope you can start to see the pattern we're highlighting here. Now, Judd Legum points out consumer brands bankrolling the biggest ICE supporters in Congress to 2025, 2026. SpaceX, Home Depot, UPS, Chevron, Walmart, Toyota, Verizon, Google, Capital One, AT&T, Amazon, Comcast, the establishment. Microsoft, FedEx, Dell. What the point is they're funding, in some cases up to $500,000, politicians who are driving the ICE agenda. Worth considering. Now, to talk about this in the context of what they're using, the flock camera surveillance control grid, as Catherine calls it, which is, at this point, guys, if you're of the mind that this isn't happening, I don't know what world you're living in. What the U.S. government is putting together, borderline might already have together, is now, it's not in this, like when you look at China with the social credit surveillance kind of dynamic, it's insane. It's way beyond what I'm seeing anywhere else. But what I'm starting to sense with what's in this country right now is a kind of docile, like to some degree, like an unacknowledged system that's waiting to be to be initiated. And I only mean that with the sense of all we're seeing build out, which is not secret, it's not debatable, with Palantir and plenty of other companies. What we're going to talk about, they Flock and Axon and Sight and Leonardo and Signal Trace and this one Defense Sync and all these different companies, almost I literally every single one of them, including Flock. Flock only has one as far as I can tell, but every one of these companies are packed to the hilt with Israeli intelligence. Flock has a military intelligence directly from the military. What was the actual? I think I have it up today. I might not. But one of the main guys I talked about that overlaps with Signal Trace and Leonardo also works for Flock, and he's directly tied to military intelligence. Right? It's right on his LinkedIn. That matters to me with what's going on today. But that's not the point for Flock necessarily, but rather just the idea. And honestly, Israel is only one part of without Israel's involvement, this is still just as insane. But what I want to highlight is what Israel's part in this is, and I think it's very obvious, to show you this rolling out around us. And the point around whether Flock was sort of a focal point and maybe meant to distract us so the other one happens, or maybe the Axon aspect right now is a reaction to us pushing back and it'll be something new tomorrow when the Axons get taken down. I don't know. But I will say this before we get into this, guys. You're making a difference out there. And I know people don't like to feel, there's people that seem to want to always fight for that, but then when it starts to happen, won't even consider that is part of it. And I get it. I'm jaded too. It's very hard to, you can see the things that feel like good stuff's happening and how often that ends up being a false thing, where it's a fake politician or whatever. But we need to maintain that hope for what we're actually fighting for, because I do believe it is possible. In this case, I truly believe what people have been doing. Jason Bassler's been doing amazing work on highlighting this. Orwell Day, who I'll highlight a couple things from today, has been doing great work on continuing the awareness of what's happening and showing you Americans all across the country, left and right, are going after these things, whether through showing their propaganda, highlighting the criminality of it, demonstrating where they are, or some people going to take action to cut them down. And I think at the end of the day, what they're doing is having a positive effect, and it's showing Americans that we will not stand for this. This is Orwell Day on the 18th. A Supreme Court decision won't dismantle the Flock camera network. They will leave it intact and simply make it constitutional. Now, this is what I believe too. I think this is where it's going, is that you're going to get some, and I'm going to point to this when we get into some of the different switching from Flock to Axon examples, where, some of the pause is sort of like, well, we don't want to do it now, but we want to make sure we fine tune the privacy policy. Well, that's not what we're asking for. I mean, maybe that turns out to be what we want, but at the end of the day, that is going to be, well, you can only use them to violate their rights in these circumstances. Well, these are unconstitutional as what they are. So it's important to understand that. And so when we go through this, realize that we need something that is in line with the actual constitutional rights of Americans. Doesn't matter what asterisk and what scare tactic and what fear, it's about the reality of our rights. So when they want to push something new that gets added or some variation on it, it has to fall back to that same line. Every time they do this. That's why I tagged the Smith Modernization Act. Exactly one of those examples where we came out and said, hey, that's a problem. And they go, oh, yeah, okay, we'll fix that. And then they just legalized it. Crazy. So starting with this, I briefly played at the beginning. We recently reported on, and this was this episode here, about Leonardo. In fact, I'll grab that one real quick. We have two here. This one just shows you the Israel connection. And I have all the links, by the way, of all the people that are tied to Israeli intelligence, tied to Leonardo, the company. Leonardo signs 2 agreements with Israeli Innovation. Those are open public agreements, but the inside people working at the company are Israeli intelligence in many cases. That's weird. So now this is now you can't even see it. Veteran-owned Flock camera. Like this happened since, by the way. I showed this on the last show, and I didn't do this last time. All this is more evidence showing you the Israeli connection that they're now just going to blank out, apparently. But the point here, this one. This is the focal point of this episode, or one of the things to this example, by the way. Signal trace. We covered that in this episode, right here. Which was, as I showed you, Israeli intelligence connected, but really something that, and I wasn't the first to cover this. I actually showed a video of a guy who was discussing this and pointed out that this was a company that could make a device that could go on top of the Flock camera, right on top of the existing cameras, and that would then do exactly, in at least in one case, what I'm about to show you. But it was simply about absorbing your text messages. getting your data exchange between your phones, like literally scooping up your information, not just surveilling with a camera. So here, as I said, recently we reported on the Israeli intelligence-packed company, Leonardo, and its product, Signal Trace, which can be placed on a flock camera to go far beyond license plate reading. I argued they were already in use. This video, if genuine, and I believe it is, this is what it shows, in my opinion. Here's the clip. Okay. Hold on. Can you guys hear me right now? Yeah, I'm not seeing a mute button. What is going on with this platform, man? Jeez. It wouldn't let me unmute it while I was playing. Doesn't matter. Here's the video. Every day. Yeah, okay, it keeps doing this. Son of a gun. Give me a second. It just mutes itself. When it goes on, then I try to mute it, and it says the person muted the video. It's my video. And it's not the other window because it's not even on there. It's just so crazy, man. This stuff, it just never stops. Let me try one more thing. This is an important video. I mean, I can explain it to you, but I think it's important that you see it.
We are getting this flock camera. It's emitting this Connect 36295 Bluetooth signal. It will randomly emit that. You can see it right there. We observed it 32 seconds ago. I can start this back up and you'll see we'll observe it consistently. This specific unit is obviously set off by human motion. Whether that's taking a picture of me is questionable, but the IR element definitely is set off from human motion. As you can see, no cars are coming. There's that Connect signal. It's a Bluetooth signal. You can see at the top there, it's coming from...
Ask yourself why it has Bluetooth at all, guys. You know, and what the point is, this goes well beyond, it's interconnected with your device. Now, one is about what it might be doing and taking and surveilling. Two is about how Israel, through the company that I think is connected, my opinion, but just in a broad sense about any, which we'll have more examples today, of other Israeli intelligence connected technology in this country, and whether Israel is using that to surveil in itself, which has been caught doing around the globe, guys. NSO, Pegasus, which Trump has contracts with through ICE, all of which have been used to spy all over the world illegally, and they've been caught for it. They've had to pay out for it. But Trump let them right in the door. So I'm wondering whether this is part of that too. My point is, however you look at it, this is not what's supposed to be happening.
The back of this battery pack, I believe it's coming from that white battery module emitting a Bluetooth signal. This looks to be a standard Falcon ALPR unit, so it's not going to be the AI video powered condo unit. The easiest way to tell is the camera. The IR unit is more towards the top of the camera as opposed to the Condor where they're on the middle. You'll be able to see this triggered by the cars. It's taking 6 to 8 images of each vehicle as it goes by, make, model, color, decals, damage.
Somebody recently pointed out, which I've heard many times in the past, right? A free country does not surveil innocent civilians, or even does not surveil citizens not suspected of crimes. You're just mass surveilling innocent people. That's because they all fear you. They always have. You're the only real threat to their power when it comes down to American, in this country, right? These people seem to have unfettered power unless we decide they're, what our own documentation makes clear. That should they basically fight, act against the interest of this country, that we have the right to alter or abolish it. That makes you a terrorist today, pointing out your own documentation.
And then it's uploading that basically via LTE to Flock OS, where it becomes searchable, indexable, and they can refer to it later. So very extensive system. Again, we're picking up that Connect 36295 signal coming from what I believe is the BLE battery pack, or the battery pack on the back of here giving off a BLE signal.
Pretty crazy. So all these are included in that episode right here that I'm pointing at. This one was entitled, You are a terrorist if you resist data centers, and Israel's infiltration of Flock and AI surveillance. This is an important one to look beyond Flock too. Just AI surveillance in general. Israel is just, speckled. I mean, speckled is even not enough. It's throughout the entire thing, guys, all throughout this country. Now, we also talked about on July 13th, data centers choose to use fresh water, Trump's bumbling around war, and the impending Israeli false flag. In this, we discuss something that I think is important with Axon. The reason I do this is just to give you guys the show where you can go back and get the source material if you want to. It's a good show about data centers and so on. But Jason Bassler talked about the Axon camera, or rather the Axon light post that's all over the UK and other places. I think that actually I take that back. That was my opinion last time, but I believe these are the light posts that we're seeing in my opinion, by the way, just speaking off the cuff. In this case, though, what Jason's talking about is the Axon camera, or rather camera light post that is real, and just saying, here's another example of the company doing the same thing, right? So here's where this goes, and I believe this is important. Here's Orwell Day again. Now, I'm not familiar with who the guy is. I asked Orwell Day earlier who this was, and we weren't able to figure it out. But either way, I'll let you know when I can, if I find out the information. But it's a great clip. And it's somebody discussing the reality of Axon cameras, which I'll prove to you myself with all of these individual local reports showing you that's what's happening, that people are now, local communities are pushing back, getting Flock removed. And then sometimes with their knowledge, sometimes not, the local community, the local government then simply goes to Axon and replaces them with those. So I said, looks like another of our concerns is coming to pass. Here's the clip.
Not supposed to see this. The only reason you are is because...
That's not the one. Shoot. I might have forgotten to grab that one. Let me get it real quick. So this is a good clip too, because he goes into quite a bit on top of what I'm talking about and the reality of, how this may go. And I think this is 53 different communities that have actually pushed back. It's really great to see. Okay, here we go.
Block Safety, the automated license plate reader technology company, not having a good time right now. By my last count, as many as 82 communities.
It got cut off kind of. He said Flock Safety is what he started with. Is not having a good time right now, which I think we're all seeing. And he goes on to talk about, that they're removing contracts all over.
My last count, as many as 82 communities in 28 states have ended their agreements with Flock Safety. I talked about how LAPD ended their agreement, how they let it expire. And I don't know why no other news source is reporting this, but I have definitively confirmed that the city of Las Vegas has ended its agreement with a third party that was providing Flock Safety cameras. They have said in writing that they're not using those cameras anymore. As I said, 82 Flock contracts have been terminated from August 2021 to May 2026. So the fact that you're talking about this in your communities is having a significant impact.
It really just needs to be absorbed alone, guys. I mean, look, like it's certainly possible this was the way it was supposed to go. That it was all about getting you to jump there so they could go over there. It's obviously possible. But I don't think it doesn't behoove us to even think that it's obvious that if we have enough numbers and people speak up enough that we have an effect, whether or not you think our government cares or not. Like, it's just about momentum. It's about the awareness that even their illusion requires them to pretend that we have influence. It's obvious. Now, we may drive beyond that, get to a point to where our government becomes so authoritarian that they can that's where I kind of think this goes and why I think they're building a control grid where it no longer matters. But right now, it truly needs to be taken as a win. Just the fact that they're changing this, even if it's momentary, even if they, like I keep pointing out in history, pause and come back from another angle, you still had a positive effect. It shows you can. Don't lose sight of that. Don't lose hope. Keep standing up for what you believe in because it makes a difference. Period.
But it's not all that it seems, because while the flock may fly away, someone else has come into the picture. Axon. In Denver, Flock had 110 Flock cameras, and then residents found out about it, so they got involved, and they were upset, and they said that they were upset, and so the city let the contract with Flock expire. But then Axon came in. This happened in Syracuse.
So think about how crazy that is. This is obviously a clip from a longer thing he does, but think about, it's right on the surface. I'm sure you already think of it. The idea that, we all go, we don't want those cameras. It's kind of like the Smith Monterey. It's the same point. They go, oh, okay, we hear you. but Axon's not Flock, right? So we'll just do that and we're okay, right? It's like, clearly they know you don't want license plate readers. They just play, rather be stupid than criminal, right? Government would always rather be seen as incompetent than criminal. If you can kind of apply it that way, but either way, they just act like, well, it's not Flock, right? So at the end of the day, they're playing you, and they probably got kickbacks from both companies. This is how this would probably work. But I just think that's important.
And it appears to also have happened in Sparks up in Nevada. It's a growing trend. The company Axon, you've probably seen their products through police body camera footage. They are the major supplier of police body cameras, but they now also provide this technology. And it's actually an entire ecosystem, body cameras. They also have drones and dash cameras and ground robots, I guess.
You might remember Axon, and I'll show it to you in a second. Remember, it got got some attention because they were floating the idea of using taser drones for ICE and other things. And their entire ethics board quit, and they pretended they stopped it. Now, as far as I could tell, it's not in use or being made. At least I can't prove that. But the point was that they then went on to buy some kind of military drone company or something on top of that. So clearly the thought is they're still invested in drones. That's clear. But at the end of the day, the drone thing with the taser was like pushed back on. And it's such a weird thing to push back on. Like there's not drones with guns all over the place. But it's sort of like the idea that we didn't do the thing you didn't want. It probably was a head fake for all we know. But that got attention, right? Then it turns out in June 2026, it gets revealed that Donald Trump, surprise, surprise, invested in Axon. I'll show you that again in a minute. I talked about this in the last show.
That's a thing. Now, there is some good news in this, in the fact that, from what we can tell, the Axon contract, at least the one in Denver as an example, does not have that national database. So a Denver cop cannot look up someone in Florida, at least as far as we can tell.
Yes, but herein lies the problem: is that I'm of the mind that already exists. Like maybe not exactly with what first of all, they have databases. We already know that they have the Fusion Center overlap. We already know that they have, like, when they basically unsiloed everything, I believe at this point in this country, they put together one master database of all of our information, not caring about privacy, which we all saw. Now and Israel's involved with that, with their AI training, their large language model. I mean, it's on record. So just because it's their AI from Israel doesn't mean that's their intelligence apparatus. And Israel's intelligence apparatus is already involved with their training of their AI, which utilizes American data. It's all on the record. So my point is that clearly you're, hold on, I just lost it with that last point.
Database.
Yeah, the database. So the point being is that we now have this centralized database in that regard, but we already have something serving like that, I think, in this country. But you add AI and everything else to it, what they're building. The point is you can have the Axon cameras and just not make a public Flock-owned surveillance sort of service database, and just to tap into the current one. I think that in itself might be the head fake. Is, oh, look, we stopped that big old thing, and now we're just doing the cameras, even though they don't need Flock to provide that for them. That would be my mind.
Denver cop cannot look up someone in Florida, at least as far as we can tell. Interestingly, we also learned in a recent report that Axon is one of the companies that the president invested in the recent financial disclosures. And of course, the reason I talk about this is, even though, for example, in Denver, they ended their agreement with Flock, Flock still has these cameras in places like HOAs or retail stores.
That's an important part of this too, is that they make a very clear point to highlight that they're only getting rid of the government part of it, which turns out is not all of it. So now you've got this whole other part of it that the government still plays a role in and still has access to, but is totally not government owned. There's your public-private partnership sort of dynamic. Not that that's what that is, but that's the way that works, where they can go, oh, well, we don't, it's theirs and we don't know, even though they still use it at the same point. And on top of the fact that even if they didn't legally have the right to use it, we know they still would.
And it's still something that we need to be concerned about. And to be very clear, we now need to understand, how is this working with Axon? What is their agreement with these agencies? And to what degree are our rights being protected or violated? This is an active conversation. So in some of these communities, we're trading.
But like, again, I mean, look, I as always, I am jaded about this, right? But I think that history shows we should be. The point is that, look, is there even a question whether they're going to violate your rights? Is that even a question? In what historical example has that not materialized into the outcome? Take your pick. Whether it's your data being sold when they told you they wouldn't, or the violation of your rights in any picture, any talking point, any political category. You show me where it hasn't amounted to your rights being violated, and I'll give you $1. And just my point is that we're going to switch to Axon. you have a government that does not care to uphold your rights. Why would it matter what company they do that through? See what I'm saying? I just think historically it's obvious to see where this goes, but we shouldn't assume, but just recognize the pattern and hope for the best while expecting what we usually see. You know what I mean? Like acknowledging rather that that's what's most likely while hoping for something better. That's the only way to really do this anymore.
6 eggs for half a dozen eggs, right? Flock safety cameras for Axon license plate readers. Not necessarily the news we wanted, but there are parts of it that we have to acknowledge are part of the work and the reason that we've done what we've done. So stay vigilant, stay focused.
Yep.
And, well, stay tuned.
Now, one thing I saw someone in the chat say, which is also kind of a running response to this, which is good. It's the right way to look at this, but it's also, in a way, I'm seeing sort of being used as sort of like a, oh, you're talking about Flock? Well, you're stupid. Just get rid of your phone. Like, I tend to see these sometimes, and it doesn't mean that sentiment's wrong. That's exactly what you should do. But like with the no virus and COVID-19 or the planes and 9/11, there's always like this weird thing that gets used to sort of deny the focal point. You see what I'm saying? And that's not to say that you meant that in the chat. Just what I'm noticing is that happening where you're going, look at how bad this is. And he goes, oh, you dummies, just get rid of your phone. It's like, well, hold on. I agree with that. But let's not just skip over the fact that whether you have a phone or not, the government's violating your rights. Now, look, my point's the same. I think we should expect that's what they'll do. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't fight. It doesn't mean we should ignore that it's happening. We should call it out. We should do our best to change it. Otherwise, what are we doing? See, that's called being blackpilled, just to go, well, they already have it. So the phone point is important, though. I think that's absolutely what we should do. And that's what we talked about many times over the years, the de-Googled phones, the different things you should be using, of which I am also using. It's about your choices, not me advocating for what I think. You go out and do something. The point would be if you feel like you want to use the phones that we all know they're manipulating, you have a right to. It shouldn't be that, well, that's your fault for doing the thing they're not supposed to do. That's called giving up. If you want to use their phones, they shouldn't be able to surveil you. The point is, I think we know they will try, but it shouldn't just be a foregone conclusion that it's your fault for letting them do it to you. Like that's a defeatist mentality, I think. But I do want to argue, I think that's important. See, there are some in regard to getting rid of the phone. There are some positions where today it's sort of like advocating for getting rid of your car, right? I agree. I think that it's I think in 1,000 reasons, it just causes more problems, whether it's environment or, whatever it is. But not everybody can do that. A lot of people need their car to be able to have a living, right? And so in the same thing with a phone, to a lesser extent, I would argue, because it's more so, I think, what's the word I'm looking for? Not necessity, but sort of like a benefit, right? But there are plenty of people that absolutely need it. Now, I would argue with what I do, that becomes very difficult to manage without a phone. But I use ones as well that are not Apple, right? But there's a difference for different positions. That's why, as always, with all these conversations, it's a personal choice that people need to decide. Because, just watch as this goes forward, and hopefully not what we think it will. But like with the internet and plenty of other things, where there's all this big talk and stances and everything right before, and then things evolve and things change. It's about your principles and whether you maintain those. You can look back through my entire time doing this to right now, and you'll watch as I maintain them going forward because they matter to me. But it's important to think about. But so the phone point, I think, is valid. And if you are interested in that and don't need it for some other job or willing to give it up regardless, there's plenty of options out there. I shouldn't say plenty. There's options out there for you to get into a different type of thing, even going back to like a flip phone that's not connected to the internet, even though they are trying to get rid of those, by the way. But get back to the show. I just want to point that out, though, because that is kind of something I've been seeing. Now, here's the article, Wired. Axon's ethics board resigned over taser-armed drones. Then the company bought a military drone maker, which, again, they're still in the drone company, so it doesn't mean they're making taser drones. But I just think it's quite obvious that that's where this goes. And if we think they've got drones out there with all sorts of other weapons, why in the world would they not be making taser drones? Seems kind of stupid to me, kind of naive. The point, though, is to recognize that Axon's was a big part of this. And this was 2023. Now, Axon, who is right now, as we'll get into in one quick second, trading all these, contracts to replace Flock cameras with Axon system. Let's not forget, I'm going to come back to this, that Axon is very clearly tied in with Israeli intelligence through multiple things. But here's one of the ones that stand out the most to me that you might already remember. Public safety giant Axon acquires Carbine for $625 million in cash. Carbine, formerly Carbine 911 that Whitney's talked about for a very long time, is literally an Israeli intelligence cutout that works in this country for 911 call centers. I mean, it is packed to the hilt with Israeli intelligence. Now, what's interesting is they talk about Carbine as some kind of a software, like an AI I'll read more in a second. Basically some kind of AI call center dynamic. But what you'll find interesting is it's right now what's basically filling the role for what Axon and Flock and ICE and all of them are using it for. Surveillance. Not necessarily knowing where, because the point was Carbine 911 was being presented as some sort of a call center, synergy of data. So we know, but yet it's one, Israeli intelligence, which should alarm us all. They're literally an Israeli company working for his 911 call centers. But on top of that, the fact that it is about data and surveillance, as they write, as Whitney covered in this very article, that the Carbine ultimately absorbed your data and everything. We'll come back to this as well. It connects to this because she, as the person in ComFrame, what is her name? Latal Leshem, is also connected to this company. As she's an Israeli spy, guys, not a joke, literal spy. So the point is that Carbine was involved with this, directly and provably tied to Israeli intelligence, is now worked together with Axon, but this is back in 2025. So it's not new. Here's Whitney. I've warned about, and this is in 2025, I've warned about pre-crime push to stop mass shootings before they happen, which we just again heard from people like Melania and, and same with Trump's first administration and Bill Barr, especially during Trump's first administration. She writes, I don't think it's a coincidence that this happens just as the full extent of the Epstein-Thiel Carbine 911 relationship is being revealed. Yes, the Thiel connection, the Jeffrey Epstein connection to Carbine, now Carbine 911, now Carbine, to Axon, to Palantir, to every other piece we're talking about. I'm sure you're going to start to see the picture. That's not called being a conspiracy theorist, guys. That's called acknowledging the obvious. I wrote about Epstein, she writes, Thiel and Carbine, as well as Trump's previous pre-crime push after a spat in 2019 of mass shootings, which, of course, then AG William Barr, who launched the DOJ pre-crime program called DEEP, seemed to predict an odd speech. Together in the same article. Check it out below and don't fall for the latest tragedy being used to coerce you into signing away your remaining freedoms to a pre-crime surveillance state. There's Melania Trump. The tragic mass shooting in Minnesota. See how this works, guys? It all comes back around. The point is Carbine, in this case, is being used to pre-crime surveil, right? But it was a 911 call center thing. It's more than that. Now, it's bigger than that. Arguably always the point. Now, let's not forget, as he highlighted, as I showed you in the last show, Trump bought as much as $5 million in stock in Axon before ICE sought the contract. And now Axon's being used in tons of other ways, or his kids are invested in drone companies or everything else. They are profiteering off of the complete collapse of this country. Now, Douglas County, and these are just the ones that I can find. As he said, they're all over the country. Douglas County to replace flock cameras, $22.8 million Axon system. That was July 15th, 2026. Council cautiously okays new Axon contract. This was, where was it? There we go. Evanston Police Department. I had something else highlighted, but I don't want to waste time. So these are all examples of places that had flock, got rid of it because of pushback, and then quietly used Axon, or at least ended up using it, or are. This one, since deflocking, this is from The Source, posted May 20th. Bend officials circle a new vendor for surveillance cameras with no plans for public input. Oh, look at that. So because you gave your input and forced them to get rid of what they probably were making money on, now they're going to push for Axon and then not even include you. Hashtag democracy, right? It just never stops, and it's always clear, guys. Bend City Council. Here's an example. Ferndale exits flock for Axon. This is Oakland County, Michigan. The contract, 5 years. Post Independent, Glenwood Springs approves Axon Public Safety Technology contract. June 8th, 2026. This is Post Crescent, Grand Shoot drops flock cameras for new vendor. Sure you can imagine which one that is. Grand Shoot's cutting ties with flock cameras and switching to Axon's fixed automated license plate readers. They may try to sell you on the fact, okay, fine, we heard you. We got rid of all the bad parts. Now it's just a license plate reader. But wait a minute. That was the first thing we cared about. Now we find out, wait a minute. Now they're literally, discerning your next child's birth name, just crazy surveillance. No, that's okay. We'll stop the thing that we had no intention of rolling out yet. And we'll go back to the cameras that you originally didn't like. Problem, reaction, solution in a way. Like that's how that works. But license plate readers and the way they're using them in and of themselves without the database are unconstitutional. Who cares, though? Because we scared you with something worse that we're going to do anyway in a couple of months. That's how this tends to work. Here is a video. Douglas County ditches flock cameras over privacy concerns. This week, Douglas Republican County Commissioners, I think that's the Douglas County, votes to replace their network of license plate cameras. They approved more than a $22 million contract with Axon. Here is Syracuse. Lawmakers approve contract for Axon license plate readers, plan to block flock safety from city streets. Okay, so they're all up in arms against the one thing, but they're letting the other one happen. Most of these places, I don't think a lot of the local people know what's happening. It's a bait and switch, guys, what it is. Fort Collins residents react as city cancels flock safety contract. Now, this is from June 18th. I believe this one was just the cancel. Denver City. Now, this was Fort Collins. Basically, the point is the Fort Collins is shutting down flock network following a city council vote. Some of these were highlighted. I lost it, but I think either way, the point was people are pushing back on flock cameras, and many of them, I believe this is one of them, but I don't want to say that in case I'm wrong, are switching to Axon. All the rest of them you can see are. Some of them I had highlighted with certain parts. I don't want to waste time looking for it. Oshkosh looking into new license plate reading cameras after ending flock contract. That's Axon. It's all in the article, June 16th. Denver City Council. Yeah, so there was another one in that other part. I forget what I was pointing to, but this is the same place. So I think it was just that one was the first. Denver City Council narrowly approves Axon contract. Yeah, that's what it was. The first one was simply saying they were looking for something else, and then this was the one confirming that they actually did it. This one was March 31st. This is on Muck Rock. Contract documents, the fully executed first amendment to the Master Services and Purchasing Agreement between the City Plantation and Axon Enterprise. Now, this is just the documenting through exchange of information, of freedom of information and public records, showing that they are switching to Axon from flock. You can read through it for yourself. Syracuse, upstate New York, same point. Oh, the same as the other one. And this is why I included this. New York mayor declares emergency to keep AI cameras watching residents. See how this works? Emergency. Surveillance cameras powered by artificial intelligence are sparking controversy. Leaders are fighting over flock safety cameras. The point is that we're going to declare an emergency. So you care. We pretend we care. We're going to stop it. But wait, emergency. Now we can't. Seem familiar? It's just what they do. What's the emergency? That you care about flock cameras. Whatever it is. They rationalize their need to keep the thing that you don't want. Also the thing that's illegal. Fort Collins is done with flock. Here's what's happening next. Oh, I thought that was in there. Fort Collins is done with flock safety, city council. Oh, that's right. So this is one that goes beyond that. So they're done with flock cameras. This one is not mentioning Axon, but it goes into what's actually happening, which seems to be sort of a pause, not a stop. But that doesn't mean the cameras will come down right away, it says. Two things, actually. Fort Collins City Council voted June 16th to immediately cancel its contract with flock, ending the city's participation in the company's automated license plate reader system. So they know, or at least in places the government controls, which is not everywhere. Delay seeking new bids for similar technology until a city surveillance policy can be put into place. Oh, great. So until they can write down why it's okay to have those cameras, then we'll have to wait. Or maybe I'm just being too jaded. Maybe they will go, well, we can't have them spy and we have to violate we have to make sure your rights are upheld. Okay, but then they'll find a way to get flock cameras in one way or another. The point is not doing it the right way. That's how partisanship works. Right? Not that we need to go out, attack Iran in the right way, that it shouldn't be happening, that both sides want it. And so they rationalize from different ways and accuse each other of doing the wrong thing when they're in power. Nobody wants these, but both sides do. So what they do is they rationalize from different angles, right? So now they're going to pretend, okay, we hear you. And ultimately it ends up being something that needs to be rationalized down the line. Or they write you a policy and say it's okay because we're not going to violate your rights, even though the cameras themselves are the issue. While the council decision ends the city government's use of flock at the moment, it doesn't stop private uses. A crowdsourced map of deflockme.me shows there are at least 50 cameras just in Fort Collins and Timnath area, and those will remain, which, as I said, the government does and will have access to. But now, the NOCO Privacy Co. And by the way, it's not just about the government. That's a huge part of this. The company clearly matters because it's connected to all sorts of things we're talking about. But on top of that, The fact that you still have access to local police and local communities, which are being caught every day violating these things. It's the fact that they exist, guys. But now it says the NOCO Privacy Coalition has decided not to turn in its petitions. Guess why? Saying the city's initial framework for a surveillance policy is in line with its desires. So what, did they get bought off? Are they not a real group? You don't have a NOCO Privacy Coalition and then go, wait, we did all this work for signing these petitions. We're not going to turn them in because, well, they're doing a policy we agree with. Well, the policy is about why you need surveillance. I don't even look into it. My gut tells me that company's not even worth your time. That coalition. The idea that first of all, you got petitions, you turn those in. People cared about what they put down. And that petition is about stopping this entirely, not just getting what you want from the process. This is the way politics works, guys. That's the whole problem with this. Co-option, manipulation. Outlines a timeline for creating a city surveillance policy to, quote, establish a clear, standardized process for how the city evaluates, approves, and monitors technologies that collect data. So meaning we will have them. We just got to make sure we monitor it and do it the right way. No, that is the problem. Doing that is a violation of our rights, period. That's why this coalition's going, okay, we got the policy maybe, and so we'll just not even go through with what we promised. Nonsense. Gadget Review basically wrote up an article about what this video was, which I'm glad to see. Simple point is cities are ditching flock safety cameras, then hiring Axon to do the same job. 53 cities dropped flock over federal data sharing, then handed them identical pole mounts to Axon. Clearly, guys, this is not unique, and I highly doubt this is just a random occurrence they all did without thinking. This is coordinated. You don't have 53 cities do the exact same thing with the exact same company, with the exact same intelligence ties, without there being some kind of coordination. Now, back to the coordination, or rather ties. U.S. public safety firm buys Israel's AI emergency response startup, Carbine, for $625 million. Carbine's emergency communications management tech provides real-time information to 911 responders. Yeah, that's not what we can clearly see it's being used for today. They sold it as that. We're here to help, guys. We're here to save you, and then we'll use it to put you in prison. You know, that's how this tends to go. Merging location services, live video chat, incident mapping, and AI-powered communication tools into a single dashboard, Carbine's cloud-based platform feeds real-time information to law enforcement agencies and 911 call responders. Well, it sure sounds like they want to help when they frame it that way, but then when you merge Carbine with Axon and other companies like Palantir and Flock, and then they're using that to enforce on you, funny how that changes the whole feeling of it, right? So let's just change the last part of the sentence. This is from 2025. So imagine it's being presented today when we know that Carbine and Axon are merged, and we know that they're now using that to surveil everybody. Merging location services, live video chat, independent mapping, and AI-powered communication tools into a single dashboard, Carbine Axon's cloud-based platform feeds real-time information to law enforcement so they can track you down and put you in jail. 911 call responders, it's about keeping you safe. None of that is about keeping you safe. You don't need to know where everyone is at all times and keep track of that for years or forever to be able to receive their 911 call about why they're in danger. This is abusing people in danger to get what they want. And this is data absorption or whatever else. At the end of the day, the point is where it's at now. Even if they had no design for that then, that's where it is today. And of course, I believe it was always the case, seeing as how it's an Israeli intelligence company that's been spying on Americans our entire lives. Since it's in its existence anyway. By uniting Axon's 30-year legacy of innovation with Carbine's cloud-based call management platform, totally innocent, we're closing that gap, giving call takers and dispatchers instant visibility and connecting them directly to officers in the field. Carbine was founded in 2015 by CEO Amir Elishai, CTO Alex Dizengoff, and R&D manager Yanni Yatsun, all of which carried over into Axon. I'll show you that next. And of course, shareholder Lato Leshem, an Israeli spy, literally part of Comframe and tied to Eric Prince and tied to all these different things I'll briefly point to again in Whitney's article back in 2023. Where were we? The startup's cloud narrative AI platform is used by emergency communication centers to receive, route, and manage incoming emergency calls and connect responders with real-time data. I mean, you could easily see how all that's being used for, not for 911 call centers, but for ICE and for tracking. It's just a narrative framing. That's all it is. And connect responders. And it says live video, multilingual and transcription, translation tools to cut response times. Quote, joining Axon allows us to scale that mission globally and integrate more deeply into the broader public safety ecosystem. Carbine, Axon, both of which have their connection to Israeli intelligence, joining. Really, the large connection in my mind is through this, but there's others before this even. But they are now infiltrated, if you look at it that way. And that's how this works. Guys, I've shown you tons of examples by this. And this is not about like my opinion because Israel. It's about what Israel has stated themselves, which I'll play that clip again. I probably should. The point is what they told you. We do this. We make fake companies to manipulate the supply chain to do far more dangerous things, right? I mean, we know this at this point, guys. They've openly told you this more times than I can count. So why would we pretend like we don't know this already?
They buy it from, or I think they were buying it from.
We have an incredible array of possibilities of creating foreign companies that have no way being traced back to Israel, shell companies over shell companies who affect the supply chain to our favor. We create a pretend world. We are a global production company. We write the screenplay. We're the directors. We're the producers. We're the main actors. The world is our stage.
Did you see any surprises in Gaza?
Surprises?
Yeah.
You mean intelligence surprises?
Pages, walkie-talkies. Do you know how many treated equipment do we have in these countries? You don't. I do.
You mean you mean booby-trapped equipment?
Not only booby-trapped.
And spying.
Manipulated equipment. All right?
In which countries are you talking about?
All the countries that you can imagine.
All the countries you can imagine. Former head of Mossad. I know I've played that many times, but it's always relevant, guys. I mean, it's, and it's just even if you think they're lying, the fact that they would be willing to claim that publicly, right? So this is my point about Carbine and any other company they've created directly run by Israeli intelligence, that is what they tell you. I'll read that clip or the paragraph from Whitney's article in a second. It also comes from the same platform, by the way. Or no, it was, I'll look at it in a second. But continuing, after merging with Axon to using their ecosystem, Carbine said its life-saving emergency response solutions are deployed at almost 300 sites globally. I mean, what other company wants to get involved with other groups' emergency services? It just seems like a strange thing to do. Serving law enforcement agencies in over 23 U.S. states. It's incredible. The site includes emergency call centers, government agencies, public safety operators across the U.S., Mexico, and Israel. Like with what's going on with the merging of the military and the intelligence, separate legislation, with people clearly seeing it for the first time, we need to reflect on these things. Companies like this that have wormed their way into intelligence and government operations all over this country, guys. To date, Carbine has raised about $200 million, they write, in financing from investors. Again, people we already know. Peter Thiel. This is important. And it's not like it's only because it's Thiel, but it matters with what they're connected to, guys. Palantir being a part of this. And plenty of other things if we even want to get into the network state agenda and where that goes and the technocratic side of it. But in July this year, in 2025, the startup nabbed $100 million in fresh funds with participation from investors, including Axon, AT&T, Valor, where's the other one? Silicon Valley Bank. This is the one that shows you that it carried over. And this is the same one. This is 2025. It started with a robbery. Carbine CEO on the money they gave Axon, or they got from Axon. Simple point. There's a lot in here. Oh, it's just top right here. We are all staying on. What's happening to Carbine, right? So you merge with Axon. Well, normally what happens is Axon takes over, right? Well, we're all staying on. He says, the company, all the people we listed out before, which I double-checked myself, this is an opportunity to make the world better. Axon plans to expand operations in Israel, an R&D center to grow, and will continue leading the global 911 field. Clearly, that's what they care about, right, as it's now being merged into a surveillance database. They were very impressed with the talent here, and they see Israel as a core hub. We're committed to staying long-term. Right, they're all going. Right, that's the whole point. Right, every one of them are going over there. Print and the spy. ComFrame Solutions is the focal point of this, but it goes into some other tangential discussions. This is what Whitney wrote in 2023. The article is entitled The Prince and the Spy. As this investigation will show, Prince's partner in ComFrame, Lital Lisham, also connected to Axon, Carbine, has been tied to a series of apparent and admitted Israeli intelligence front companies, several of which have a focus on technology. in this very article. She gets into Carbine. Later comes Carbine 911. But here's the statement from a previous. I'll just grab the article too, I think, wherever that was. Oh, it's up here. Here we go. Stunning revelation she highlights in this article. Israel blurs, it is this platform, blurs the line between defense apparatus and local cybersecurity hub. Isn't that funny? In some cases, managers of development projects in the Israeli military and intelligence arms were encouraged by the Israeli government to form their own companies, which then took over the project. An Israeli venture capitalist familiar with the matter said, meaning, in case you don't already catch it, they're making companies through intelligence that they then urge them to take over so they can continue their front company for the intelligence interest while making money. And while going, hey, we're just companies. Hey, well, you hate me because I'm Israeli? That's it. They're abusing that. I'll include that too, actually, in case you want to read that article. It's well done. So continuing. There's an overlap here before we get into one of the other companies that connects to all of this that ties right back around. This is we just talked about recently I think it was San Francisco, I believe, but those cars they were using were just lit directly from Israeli intelligence. Like it's not like this is not even a problem in the minds of the government because it's so obvious at this point. As Tinfoil Hat Girl writes, Skydio is an In-Q-Tel and Israel company. Here's the clip, and then we'll go into that.
Cops in San Francisco live streamed highly sensitive surveillance drone footage on the open web.
Again, remember the drone point and how this interconnects, and it will circle back. Now we're a new topic. Skydio, different company, used by the local police and all over this country that also happens to have those kind of ties.
Security researchers Sam Curry and Mike Robert found that a link on the drone platform Skydio publicly revealed real-time San Francisco police drone footage from both color and thermal cameras recorded by 5 Skydio quadcopters as they flew around the city. The researchers reported the leak to Skydio, but by the time the link was taken down, Curry and Robert had already recorded and shared with Wired around 3 hours of video from 2 days of exposed drone flights. The footage shows, for instance, police surrounding and tackling a man hiding in a parking lot viewed from multiple quadcopters, police jumping off scooters to detain another man, and a view of police inside an apartment in a high-rise building. None of this should have ever been exposed, but it now provides a revealing glimpse of modern drone-based police surveillance. In one questionable incident described in police records as a prowler investigation, a drone zooms in on an oblivious young person wearing headphones on the roof of a building. In another investigation described as an alleged theft from a vehicle, a drone follows a car for 10 minutes until 2 men get out and start innocently playing basketball. When Wired reached out...
Okay, just real quickly, in case you missed, the point is they're just surveilling people, guys. I mean, that may be ubiquitous to some people, but it shouldn't be. This is the point. That's not how this is supposed to work, but this is what's being normalized. And if we don't already see where it is, but if you maybe just where it can go, I believe it's where it already is, just hasn't been shown to us the way it could be. But if you don't think that, just if we know where it can go, this is what we have to stop. Stand up now, not when it's being shoved down your throat as breaking news from the fake media, but now while it can actually be stopped.
To the San Francisco Police Department, it responded in a statement calling the exposed drone video stream an internal restricted link that is for SFPD law enforcement purposes only, and wrote that it had been improperly obtained and accessed by individuals without authorization. But
right, it's your fault for catching our illegal surveillance. How dare you?
Curry and Robert say they didn't bypass any security or gain unauthorized access to anything. Instead, someone with access to the SFPD's Skydio instance appears to have created a link last December to 5 of its drone's feeds with no authentication and an expiration date of 1 full year. The SFPD's drone policy requires pilots to minimize inadvertent recording of uninvolved people and places, but...
Now, really quickly, what do you think that is? It could be anything. My gut tells me it was a way to give access to this to people that weren't authorized. You create a link that can be given to anybody, and then anybody can use it. This is just the lawless reality of where we are. That's my opinion, but I think it's pretty clearly the most likely possibility. Or I guess you could argue it with somebody who wanted to expose it, but same potential in either way.
According to Wired's analysis of the videos, the drone cameras filmed hundreds of people and vehicles across just the 20 flight recordings we obtained, with dozens of faces captured in some single frames of the videos. The security researchers were struck by how, in all the videos they watched, no one ever looks up or attempts to hide from the drone, suggesting that their small size and high altitude make them virtually invisible. In other words, you would never even know that you were being watched, unless, of course, you find a link to a video stream of that police surveillance available on the public internet.
I found this drone program in San Francisco has grown a lot more than they probably want you to know that it has. So the program was launched in 2024.
So, as she writes, Skydio, the company we're talking about, is connected to Israeli intelligence, as well as the CIA. She's not wrong. Just to quickly connect this back to the point we're making today, which is why I'm including this. First of all, this is from Skydio.com. A family of flying robots serving the most pressing needs of industries and civilization run. The needs of industries our civilization runs on. 4 million, almost 5 million customers and counting. Okay, it was the platform if you want to look at it. Here's an article from Israel Defense. The advanced drone solution for Israel's security and civilian needs. Read from my highlighting here. It's just this 3 paragraphs. Skydio, a leading U.S. drone manufacturer, has announced Defense Sync as its official authorized partner in Israel. According to Defense Sync, this collaboration with Skydio, you see how this continues to work, guys? It's not, I mean, I'm not saying this, you could argue it's completely benign. I'm not, at the end of the day, what we know is that this is how they operate, and you can hear it out of their own mouths. And what we know is that these companies in and of themselves are violating your rights. So my nuance around it is up for you to decide. But the point we're making is undeniable. This is a violation of your rights. Israel's clearly involved, and so is your government. The rest you could decide. But at the end of the day, my point is I think it's obvious that these company overlaps are all simply to hide what the real agenda is. Defense Sync, collaboration with Skydio, enables the development of an advanced drone platform featuring autonomous technologies capable of operating in both GPS-denied environments and high electromagnetic interference scenarios, literally designed to not be ruined by other things designed to stop drones. So these are things that are circumventing our abilities to stop them, while ensuring obstacle avoidance and heightened level of information security. Nimrod Eshel, CEO of Defense Sync, emphasized the significance of Skydio's local office in Israel. Following the events of October 7th, hundreds of Skydio drones have been distributed in Israel, predominantly to Israeli security forces. Presently, the Skydio X10 and X10D drones are being deployed in Israel by Defense Sync. So understand that giving drones is one thing, but Defense Sync is its own company that has been merged with Skydio. And that's on top of its other connections. Now, Eli, this is the only reason I'm bringing it up today, because you can look, there's plenty of stuff to concern yourself with these other companies and what they've been involved in. This guy, senior director, who also works for Flock Safety. I didn't expect that, actually. I was just trying to see the interesting deep parts of this for maybe even future shows. And he's the senior director of connectivity for Flock Safety. He's also the head of wireless at Skydio. Now, Flock Safety also has somebody at the high level who's directly tied to Israeli intelligence. I just went over this in that last show where you are a terrorist if you fight data centers, whatever the title was. And now we also have Skydio connected to Defense Sync and all the rest of it tied together. I just think this shows you that there's a connection here. Now, it could just be that they are in the same industry. It's certainly possible. But the more you go through this, the more you're going to find these very same connections for everything we're dealing with. This feels coordinated to me. Defense Sync, Skydio, X10D. Now you can also see an official authorized partners. One of them is Skydio, like partners, not just necessarily working with them. Now, going back to Flock, showing you that there's many other things that we could get into that connect to the surveillance apparatus being built around you. And even though Flock is one that's somewhat being moved away from, it's about the sentiment of the people that your government or individuals work with and why this should be acceptable to anybody. Now, first, Dark Powell here shares this. This guy is asked directly if you work for Flock, and he denies it outright. And then comes back around to somebody who's trying to get them removed because he works for Flock. Now, why would that be the case? You'll see I'll read what I said afterward, but watch this clip. And then we'll have another clip about some people that are getting caught abusing it. But this is a guy who works for Flock, who's also with British intelligence, apparently.
Are you with Flock?
What?
Are you with Flock?
No, there's a construction firm I work with, CSB.
This man, James Boyce, is
I work for CSB. So he denies it outright and says, no, I work with this other company.
Former British Army veteran and a current Flock supply chain manager. Not only did he lie about working for Flock, which I'm guessing is probably normal at this company, but he also implied to Georgia law enforcement that I could have been armed, and we'll soon see if that puts my life in danger. You guys have done nothing wrong. Actually, we've also done nothing wrong, and yet we're blockaded by a police officer. Are we being detained?
The manager wants to speak.
It's a yes or no question, sir.
You're going to wait here until the manager talks.
You're holding.
Here we go. Guys, that is more alarming to me than, I mean, what he just said right there. This is the bigger point. We're in this, like, you know, where you see these movies, these dystopian movies where the corporations run the world. Like, this is where it goes. You're talking, a police officer is saying, no. You have to wait there until that company manager comes out and talks to you. A police officer. Even though that's not legal reality, you have no, am I being charged with a crime or not? You have no, it's just like the video we just showed you. These cops don't even know their own job anymore. Or at the least they know what the government tells them their job is. Your rights don't even play a factor. Your rights are kind of what it seems they're taught to appease you with. They pacify you with, right? They placate you. Yeah, your rights. We get it. Now get in the car. What do you mean? You have to wait until the manager comes out here. I just think, because you're not charging with a crime, guys. There's no way around that. That's what this police officer thinks because clearly that officer believes he works for this company. At least that's how I read the situation.
The manager wants to speak.
It's a yes or no question, sir.
You're going to wait here until the manager talks.
You're holding me until that guy talks, but you're not telling me if I'm going to be detained. Yeah, you are. Am I allowed to leave? Can I go in my car and leave? They are with Flock Safety. They just confirmed.
How you doing?
Hey,
I'm good.
What's up, brother?
Hi, how you doing, sir?
Good.
Doesn't take his hand, of course.
Tell him what you need to tell him. So, gentlemen, I just want to be very clear.
So, go, police officer, okay, go ahead. Now you tell them what you need to tell them. I held him for you. What? People standing on the street?
There's a multi-tenant site here with a lot of people that are just trying to work. I've got yourself and everyone running in the street. I had to put my brakes on just to stop to make sure you're okay.
Are you safe right now?
No, running in the street. He almost hit them. He had to put his brakes on. I mean, does anybody actually think that's what he's concerned about, guys? I mean, come on. If you're talking, I mean, like, it doesn't even matter. The point is, the fact that they're using that is just what's the kind of conversation you have about how if a lawyer or police will tell you, basically anybody in this country can be charged with multiple felonies if they just choose to try. Because of all the laws in the books and all the dumb things. Now, whether that's the case here, my point is simply saying you're taking advantage of things that nobody cares about to try to stop them, even though it's abuse of the law. It's abuse, and this is a company, I guess, intelligence attaché or whatever you want to call it, working for Flock, who's now coming out there. I mean, the whole thing feels wrong. And it shows you what's really driving most of this, at least in this circumstance. The cop bowing to corporate interests, holding you for them, and then them coming out and telling you what you're allowed to do and not. And so, well, you can't run in the street. It just pales. It's just crazy.
Well, I don't know that, do I? So I just want to make sure we've had everyone clear. There's a multi-tenant site here with a lot of people that are just trying to work. I've got yourself and everyone running in the street. I had to put my brakes on just to stop to make sure you're okay.
Are you safe right now, sir?
Well, I don't know that, do I?
Wow.
So I just want to make sure. We've had reports that you've been to basically every Flock Safety site and facility that you know of. And
So clearly it was running in the street then. Clearly.
Correct.
Yeah. So
Your surveillance is correct. We're doing our own surveillance.
So people don't really feel safe right now with people randomly trying to get into our sites and buildings.
Oh, wait. You don't
Also
feel
holding
safe being
products.
surveilled. Is that what you're saying?
Not at all, sir.
Because that's what you guys do to us without our consent.
Okay.
And I think it's interesting when you guys have this happen, you call the police and make us get stopped. But then you do it and it's okay?
Now, as far as I could tell, there wasn't evidence that they were trying to break in anything, but I don't have all the details around this. But the point would be that there are numerous examples of politicians or anybody else, the moment they get surveilled. Ask Alex Karp about his double-paned soundproof glass that he stops, glass made to stop people from surveilling him through the window. I mean, these are all real things he's talked about, at least. The point being that these people are building an apparatus that removes your privacy, and yet they will lose their minds when they lose a fraction of theirs. Now, I'm not saying you should go out there and violate their rights and privacy. Don't do the same thing back. The point, though, is that he has a right to stand there and ask questions and hold his camera and be in the street, or, just in general, by the way, regardless of your weird things. At the end of the day, you're not allowed to walk outside these lines. The truth is, it's clear they don't like being focused on, just like ICE. And doesn't there seem to be a common thread here? Maybe because they're doing something wrong.
I mean, our devices will call the police regard. What we'd like you to do is, basically, we're saying that you're trespassing on this site and we'd like you to leave peacefully.
After Flock called the police and had us detained, I immediately filed a public records request for the police reports and body cam footage. In Georgia, by law, a city or police department has 3 days to respond to a FOIA request. I didn't even get an acknowledgement response for 10 days. I then followed their instructions confirming the request on their own portal, and a week later they rejected it, claiming that it was canceled due to no response. So I want the citizens of Smyrna, Georgia to understand that if this nonsense continues, then their property taxes will be paying my legal fees and any fines when I sue the city for the records that they're obligated by law to provide me.
Right. And don't miss that they detained them anyway. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, this is lawless, guys. And even the broken process through which you're supposed to be able to access government information, I've always laughed at that. Now, clearly, there has been things that have come out that have been relevant, but I've just never been of the mind that the government would create a system through which you could get secrets about them. It just doesn't make sense to me, guys. I'm sorry. And at the end of the day, they just go screw off. We don't care, especially right now. But as always, you know, they don't like it when you do it to them. So why does he lie about who he works for? Right? Funny how quick his rights become important when he claims he's being illegally surveilled, while the company he does not want to admit he works for continues to illegally surveil all of us. Certainly feels relevant to me. Now, here's a clip of some people getting caught continuing to violate the system itself that they claim is not violating your rights.
Yes, I did. People that I spoke to in the Fayetteville area call this very alarming, that police officers are using those flock cameras for their own purposes. They say that this raises new questions about privacy, accountability, and how the technology is monitored.
For many, flock cameras are supposed to make communities safer. But after 3 officers allegedly abused the system for personal reasons, some residents are questioning whether the technology has enough safeguards.
I don't think what he means is literally everybody's questioning that, and only the government likes it. That's what it feels like right now. Some people love the cameras, but let's talk about that weird guy that doesn't like them. It's like, that's the news coverage for you. But the truth is, guys, this is a near incessant story. And they go, but that's showing you that it works. Well, what it shows you, even if you argue it's enforcing on itself, is that people will always abuse power. Welcome to the world. And people, when given this power, will choose to violate because people are human. And when you live in a world in which the very highest power in the land is daily demonstrating that nothing matters other than power, well, then everyone will start to take note of that, even subconsciously. Children, police officers, doctors, people start to go, well, I'm strong. I can take what I want. Isn't that the message? Children growing up are going American freedom, liberty, and I'm going to go shoot you in the face for what I want. Isn't that what democracy is? I mean, I'm half joking, guys. Just think about that for a second. Like, people see it. And the reality is this kind of stuff is trailing, or rather, kind of slowly changing the way people who are growing into it read these things. It's always like that.
They should be misused for personal use or any other use unless it's for a legal reason.
According to the Fayetteville Police Department, the officers improperly used the license plate reader technology to look for relatives and acquaintances, actions the department says fell outside of the scope of their duties. Now, some residents are calling for stronger oversight.
They should be for that specific purpose. If they're able to use it for all these other reasons like tracking people, either they need a new company that has protections on the gear to where you can't do all that stuff, or
don't worry, we'll give you the non-spying constitutional violating, we'll give you the violation of your rights version that doesn't illegally spy on you until they figure out how to get around that, or until the government does it anyway, or until they don't install it, they lie to you about it, or the contract has an out. It's like every other situation ever in history, as Flock signs a contract and then it says, we won't sell your data, and then they just secretly remove that after you sign it. These people are criminals. Why do we think they're going to abide by anything, guys?
There needs to be some checks and balances on it.
Atlanta News First reached out to Flock Safety. The company's CEO said,
stop it again. I mean, think about this. Ask yourself, okay, if you're going to say, here's this thing that violates my rights, like, don't even get into what it is. It's a criminal act. Just make sure that you have checks and balances on how that thing goes. As long as it's okay that it's an illegal thing, as long as you're making sure it's balanced and that you're checking on it, then we're good. I mean, it's just an illogical thing to say. Those things are violating your rights. Most Americans don't want them, but let's make sure we work out how to make them work the right way. It's a game. They don't care. They've never cared. In fact, I argue this is where they always knew it would go. They push too hard. They wait for you to react. Then they fall back a step. Then they go 3 more. Oh, okay, we one step back. And then 5 more. Oh, then 1 step back. It's the way this always happens unless we as Americans do something about it.
While the allegations are disappointing, it also demonstrates that agencies can detect misuse.
It's a disappointing story when I see it, but I also go, look, this is working. This is showing.
That's the CEO of Flock, by the way. Surprise, surprise. The one who called you a terrorist for caring about this.
That if you use a tool like Flock or other tools, you should be held accountable, regardless of whether you have a badge or you don't.
Oh my God, what a bombshell crazy thing to say. All brave you are. They should follow the rules. Wow. Maybe we should, what are they? It's just insane. Good for you for pointing out what anybody already knows and what everybody should have done. And that a child could have seen won't happen, or in some cases will be abused. That's the point. You don't create a situation where it can't, like if you start something like this, the possibility for abuse is where you look. Not what it will gain you, not what it will gain the police officers in surveilling you, but how it can possibly be abused. I don't care if it's 1%. If it opens the door for 1% of Americans to have their rights abused, it should never happen. Fill in the blank with whatever benefits we may lose. I don't care. That's how this has to work, guys.
Comes as Flock cameras continue to face scrutiny across metro Atlanta. In some communities, opponents have even vandalized or removed the cameras. Fayetteville resident Willie Wells says the latest incident only reinforces his concerns.
They're unconstitutional and they have to pay us for our data. Okay? We're becoming a police state. We got to stop it.
I hate that he said that. I hate that that's being something that gets framed in this clip. They have to pay us for our data. See, it's the same kind of thing. Oh, as long as they pay you for your violation, then it's all good. No, they're not asking you. They're not going, hey, can we have your data for money? They're stealing it, guys. That's the point he's kind of making, but we shouldn't be just pay us and we're okay, which is kind of the way that works out. Here is a clip from, this was Cleveland Council. Orwell Day shared this, saying there was a side door access, which is exactly what I told you was the case. It was my opinion. I said it was my opinion, but here we are being vindicated for the zillionth time. The point is, this is what government does. When they start a system, or either Flock or the government, but it's both ways you look at it in this case, especially the way I think it really operates, is that you create a system and then there's rules and lines and regulations and lines and contracts that we secretly remove, and they just have a back door for Israel intelligence, for the U.S. government, for whatever else this opens the door to. Or maybe it's a random link some guy made from in the company, like that other thing we just saw. Who knows? The point is that it's always possible like this. And if it is, then we shouldn't allow it in the first place. And so what he found out is that people were able to access this data, even as he is in the local government, and were able to look at his information. And suddenly then he cared. So there's 2 points to make. I'm glad that he cared to stop it, but it's funny how he only cared to stop it after he felt his rights being violated. Maybe that's why those guys were doing that at the Flock location. There's a valid point to be made there.
So here I am having conversations, and I believe that only Cleveland has access, and now we hear that there's as we're calling it now, a side door access to information, right? This is why nobody trusts Flock, right?
Okay, well then why did you do it in the first place, man? Now I shouldn't even say that because I'm not knowledgeable on what happened. Maybe he pushed back in the meetings. I don't know, but I tell you, it's just frustrating that it has to be, I'm suddenly realized that we were being looked at too. It's like, well, it was good when we were, it's just weird. It's weird. But either way, I'm glad it's happening. I'm glad that you're getting pushback. But like we said then, and it was my opinion, we knew there would be a way around what they claim would stop you from cheating or violating your rights or surveilling. Of course there will be, because it's built that way.
Because you have to find the answers on your own, right? I think everybody in the administration understands council's position on this, but yet every time we take 2 steps forward, we're taking 1 back because the side door opens. And that's the frustrating part of this piece of legislation, is that when I'm told only Cleveland's going to have access to it, and then we learned that the Fusion Center will now have access or has access.
That's always the point. Because even if they don't tell you that, it's because of some national security justification where it's illegal, but not in this case. It doesn't matter, guys. They'll use it. They don't need a rationalization. That's just an easier way to get away with it. They'll just do what they want. We've seen that pretty clearly so far. Fusion Center, that's intelligence. That's the intelligence kind of network of data flow around this country between other agencies. And they've always had access, even though they told you that wouldn't be the case.
To Cleveland's information through Flock, that level of trust just falls again.
Yeah. Now, Few points to get into finish here. I'll include this article, which I do think is a well done, important piece. And I hope he writes more for TLAV as well. Jason Bassler, 8 ways to take down Flock without a sawzall. And the point of this was simply to highlight the fact that, like I said on Steve's show, the same thing. I support people taking action against unconstitutional surveillance, including cutting these things down. Know that if you do, they'll probably come arrest you. It's just like, it's like anything else with an authoritarian state. You don't pay your taxes, even though we know that if you understand it and you listen to even people that have resigned from the IRS because it's an unconstitutional institution, you don't pay them, they'll come to your door with a gun. So even though you're in right, still doesn't change. It's enforcement of an authoritarian arm. The point, though, is that knowing that, here's 8 ways to take action that will go through the legal channels that still has effect. You do what you think is right out there. The point is, this is a way for people to try to come at it from a legal way. And I do think it's well done. And he does a great job breaking down all these ways that are clearly having an effect, as we're seeing. So make sure you check this out. Now, just a couple quick points before we end with a clip. This is just an interesting post from Being Libertarian. So we're talking about these cameras and being cut down or surveilled or removed from the county. Here's a guy who has one in front of his house. And I just think it's hilarious. The guy says, man seen in St. Petersburg, Florida, blocking a flock camera with a sign. What's he doing for the podcast? He's simply sitting right next to it, which happens to be in his front yard, with a long pole with a big sign on it, which held just right blocks the entire view of the camera. But he's not touching the camera. He's sitting on the public area holding his own sign. There's no crime against that, right? Obviously, that's not some, effective way across the board. Who knows? Maybe start protesting around them and covering them without touching it. Who knows what they'll do? They'll probably arrest you anyway. The point, though, is that he's not breaking the law, and he's just finding his own way to push back against this. Everyone out there can decide how they think is the best way to go at this. Don't just follow everyone else around you. There are ways you can find to push back, whether it's protesting or doing a show or going out and whatever it is. There's plenty of ways that we can't even think of right now that I'm sure you can decide. Do something. Now is the time, ladies and gentlemen. And it was funny. Somebody commented on this going, I know that guy. That's in my county. I thought that was just kind of cool. It's like there's people all over the place. Mandy here, who has 227,000 followers. Honestly, this makes me feel like that first account we started with. It says, unpopular opinion here, but I think data centers are good. What's funny is it's actually unpopular within the people, but this is so funny. It's not brave. I think this is what I actually say. I simply say it's always kind of joking in a sarcastic way. I said it's always so brave to come out in favor of the establishment narrative, right? As much as it's actually unpopular today, which is pretty clear. And I think it always is, but it's harder to see in the past. That ultimately it's not brave to come out and be like, I support the thing that they're pushing on you through the corporate media. It's like, that's not brave. That's the weakest position in the room. Now, if you support data centers because you actually support them, then make your case. But there's nothing positive unless you're like, I like artificial intelligence. I think we should get rid of our water. It's like, it doesn't make much sense to me. But I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that like the idea of where this goes and can rationalize the benefits in our lives. But what I'm pointing out here is not the intelligent take, breaking it down. It's the mindless, large following Twitter account that are like, data center, good. You don't like Flock, you're a terrorist. And it's like all of a sudden within the last week, everyone's noticed it. And I simply said, funny how many of these influencers have just discovered this opinion lately, all in the same couple of days. Now, I'm not saying every one of them we should assume is false, but it's interesting to see the coordination. Hard Pass highlights this Cam Higbee guy, who's just one of these clear Zionist chills out there, in my opinion, who says, I won't be surprised if we later find out Flock paid a bunch of influencers for these posts. Now, that's not that crazy. I'm not saying I know that or he knows that, but the point is we saw it come out and Israel brazenly did that. But it's a lot of examples. This is the way these platforms work today. And so many people have realized a huge payday from just towing the line. And it's unpopular today, truly, but it still makes them money. And Cam Higbee says, imagine being a law-abiding citizen. Whatever the F that means, by the way. Count me out. I don't want to be, you think, what's normal and good. Screw that. I want to be weird and different. I don't want to be the law-abiding citizen. Like, understand, I'm kind of the point comes down to the law today, in most cases, is not constitutional. And I take it back. I should say most cases, but a lot of very big, consistent cases, the law is not constitutional. The laws they pass violate your rights. The laws they pass are repugnant to the Constitution and therefore null and void per Mayberry and Madison, 1803. I forget the date. My point being, imagine being a law-abiding citizen is a weird way to start from a group claiming to push back against the deep state. It's funny, though. But it says, and you're afraid of cameras on public property. What? He says, what's next? Tearing down the boards that tell you you're speeding? Well, that's not that crazy, actually, because that's another version of the same kind of surveillance. But I digress because that muddies the point. The bottom line is he's not talking about public property individuals. They're talking about government surveillance. And he knows that. These people all came out with these push opinions all within the few same days of each other. That's what he's pointing out here as well. And he also points out, and they're all like absolutely getting throttled, or rather, ratioed to crazy. It's very obvious. Here's another one. So July 18th, he writes, to be clear, and this is a follow-up because he got so much pushback. He goes, I literally could not care less about Flock as a corporation. I'm not pro-Flock. Because it's about the company, isn't it, guy? What an idiot. I don't believe that any person is entitled to privacy in public. You see, he's deliberately missing the point, or maybe he's just that dunce, or that ignorant. The point being, it's about the government, not an individual. And this is becoming a common thing we're seeing right now. Because you're right. If I go stand in the middle of a parking lot, I don't have any right to have privacy while I'm standing in the public area, unless I go in my car, for example. There's different dynamics around that. The point is that what he's talking about is a person. What I'm talking about is a federal government that has a legal obligation to respect your rights. And what they're doing is deliberately violating them in many different public ways. But he wants to go like, oh, you don't like about that person looking at you? What person? You mean that police officer looking at you naked in the shower? Or I shouldn't say it like that, because what I'm saying that is the broad sense of surveillance, because it's been proven of Alexa cameras or any other things where it's been caught, where people have literally violated those things and spied on people. But my point with the cops would be, like we just saw, spying on their exes using these cameras, or any number of other things which have already been caught. And it says many of the people who talk the most about this built their careers by filming in public without or against consent. He's being dishonest on purpose, I think, or he might just be that stupid. That we're talking about somebody who's out there filming people is not the same, buddy. You have a right to film in a public space. If I kick in your front door and look, that's not allowed. You see the difference? The government can't do either without consent. That's the point. But it has been for a long time. And these people are all bootlicking followers, guys. That's the point. But some people call it out. Dank Memes highlights this. And this is I don't know if this is JP Sears who made it, but they're using him in the meme. And it simply says, and it sounds like something JP would do. He's been calling this stuff out lately. Here he is in that weird little bloody shirt with the Israeli tie he wears when pretending to be Israeli. And it says, how do you feel about Flock cameras? And a guy in a MAGA hat says, well, they're obviously a violation of the Fourth Amendment and part of an ever-expanding surveillance state, which, bing, 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 that's the correct answer. Then it goes, and how about now? And puts a bunch of money on him. And he goes, obviously, Flock cameras, obviously a left-wing propaganda campaign. Perfect. I mean, guys, and this goes both ways. That's the point. And I'm hoping he can start to see that too. That this is, I shouldn't even say I think he does. It's not about it's about using the partisan, even if it is, for example, or that's possible. It's about the government using your partisan division to stop you from stopping something that all of it will use against you. It never stops. And Owen Schroyer said the same thing. It's pretty telling that all the people who support the unpopular war in the Middle East also support the unpopular surveillance state. Wonder why? Fair point. Interesting overlap here. This has been going around. This guy, Jonathan Jackson, got arrested for cutting down a Flock camera. And Sal Viagra says, guys, we're more than halfway to the goal. Surprising, actually, that this guy's getting money. Usually these things only support the weird government agendas, the weird mainstream thing. This guy's getting tons of money on his GoFundMe. I think that really does show you mass adoption in general sense, like an organic sense. But this American patriot, Sal writes, is accused of deflocking his town. Continue to defend to his defense here, or let the parasites win. Now, again, guys, I stress that everyone in this town, everyone around here who cares needs to make sure your entire town knows what jury nullification is. Show the world that we actually have power. If you literally can get this guy removed, the jury can shut this down per jury nullification, which is simply the idea that the jury, it's real, you can look it up. It's amazing we don't know this in this country. If you as the jury decide collectively that no matter what they rule, that the law is unjust and should not happen, they'll let him go. It's happened before, but your government, your system desperately wants you to forget about it and probably won't even acknowledge it today or even honor it, to be quite frank, but we should try. The point, though, I was going to make, you have a lot of Republicans out there who are very much adamant about the cutting down of Flock cameras. I thought it was interesting when I saw this guy. I think it's a thought experiment here. Now, I know, and frankly, to put it this way, I saw comments making points about this. So, he's a Democrat. I don't know why you would assume that. People, well, he looks like a Democrat. Very stupid today how easy that tricks people. People I've seen all over the map who look very different are not either don't care about either side, or people that look like you're a MAGA guy or a Democrat or vice versa, because those some things don't apply. That's the corporate media. There is a clear lens. My point would be, would you not support this guy if he was a Democrat? Think about this for a second. And I'm really trying to reach the people out there who are hearing what I'm saying, but still kind of leaning in the partisan direction. If you suddenly have a weird aversion to supporting what he did, even though you support the action because you find out he's a Democrat, there's something you should reflect on there. That's your problem, not his. Because even if you agree, even if he has all these things you hate about him, the point is it's your thing to do. You should support it because of the action, because of the principle, not whether or not you assume he might do things because of his other ideology. This is the point. I saw a lot of comments, unfortunately, they were just because they assumed he was a Democrat. Not in this post, but the different one that I was looking at earlier. And the bottom line is, it's about the idea of pushing back. And left and right, guys, people across this country clearly see a problem. And if we let the partisan get in the way, it'll stop us from actually changing something. That's the point. And I don't even know. I probably doesn't even care. I don't care whether the guy's Democrat or Republican. Frankly, I think most Americans are starting to see through it all. On top of that, what do you think of this? Now, this is interesting to me. Now, it's the same kind of thing. There's a lot of these larger people that kind of straddled the COVID-19 awareness, but came in way too late and sort of carried that into the next agendas. Brett Weinstein, Dark Horse Podcast says, Brett asks, what's this all really for? If you look at the push towards tokenization of assets and all this stuff, and he says here, we, the governed, did not consent to mass surveillance. I agree. Civil disobedience is morally justified. Correct. The technocratic authoritarians can flock right off with their license plate readers. We know this isn't about our safety. It's about control. We see you. I agree. To a T. Now, the question is, do you think he means that? Or do you think he's just jumping on what people are already saying? Look, it's a thought experiment. Same thing. Frankly, it doesn't really matter. You should consider that because it matters personally whether you notice people are opportunists, dishonest, or whatever, or consider that he genuinely sees this and cares. And if you think he's dishonest, maybe he was only missing something in a different conversation. It's like question all of them. But I'm trying to get people on the point of the principle, right? It's not about whether or not, it does matter in some context, but if you're just talking about whether or not we're fighting this, you should go correct. You don't have to share it if you don't want, because all it's going to do if you think he's dishonest is, promote him. And, because there are people that are out there using statements. I think Jones and the rest do it every day that make you think people believe certain things. And it's all about just throwing at you what you want to hear. The whole administration does it every day. I don't know, honestly. I'm on the fence about him in particular with this very point. I don't know. My point is, though, it shouldn't even matter that people are seeing it. And whether it's because people at this level are starting to scream about it because they know we see it, which is a huge positive sign for actual awareness around it, or it's because he really sees it. And this is an even bigger movement. The point is, fight for it. Don't get dissuaded for something you care about because you feel like it's being used against you. Be aware of that. Watch for it. But look at the principle. Is it violating your rights? Yes. Should I stop it? Yes. Doesn't matter whether there's somehow it'd want you, well, I guess, you could look at it as if you think there's a secondary agenda that will lead to, but don't just assume these things. We are doing something that matters, and I truly believe it's making a difference. Whether or not it's being co-opted or acknowledged, that's the point they're trying to make. Because I do think that's going to happen. Like, let's just say this is completely organic and it's scaring the hell out of people in power. That's exactly what you're going to start to see. People that start to jump on the movement, acting like they support it, and then ultimately drive it into the ground. Or what I worry about is driving it into a more terroristic version of it on purpose. Like using some kind of Antifa cutout from CIA to go carry out some massive attack on a flock location that ends up then being used against people that are simply going, flock is bad. This is the classic tactic of this government. I hope it doesn't happen. That's insane, but that's what they do all the time throughout history in multiple countries, including in the United States. Now to finish, data centers. Just 2 points with a clip to finish with. U.S. construction spending on data centers eclipses $50 billion. That's just the U.S. government. Most of these are being built with private money by people that are building them. And for the larger ones, like Elon Musk, for example, but it's overlap with government. But $50 billion. June 1st, spending on data center construction in the U.S. eclipsed $50 billion in April for the first time, according to the Census Bureau. Probably so much more than that. Private sector outlays for data centers also outpaced public spending on transportation, airport facilities, marine terminals, mass transit for the first time in history. So can you see where things are aiming? They don't care about you and what you need and how you can survive in the system. They care about the focus of the control grid. The numbers underscore the extent to which investment in data centers is becoming increasingly central in the U.S. economy. It's eclipsing everything, guys. It's quite literally becoming the only focal point. So I'll end with this clip. A great podcast with Catherine Austin Fitz on the Free Thought Project. Firebrand and Solar Report breaks down why the U.S. is hell-bent on massive data center expansion. And no, it's not about beating China. It's about the tidal wave of surveillance and tech barreling straight at us. Okay, I was going to say, maybe I got that wrong. This is the Free Thought Project podcast and Catherine Austin Fitz. So I'm going to end with this. We'll leave it on the way out. And it's what we've been talking about. Oh, one more thing on the way out. I should have said at the beginning. I forgot. We recently were going to do an IMA panel before I was leaving on the impersonation. The day we were going to do it, ultimately Whitney had some problem with her satellite. We weren't able to connect. And that's why that didn't happen. Ultimately, I'd said that, I think, a week ago or so. That still is generally planned to happen, but there was, everything was lined up and then just unfortunately wasn't ready. Whitney's the person most affected by it, so it ultimately didn't happen. But so you guys know that will probably be coming. The reason I think about it is because Catherine is in the IMA and we have more coming your way quite soon. But speaking on that, though, here's Catherine telling you why this is in the government's mind a foregone conclusion. It's happening. I believe we can absolutely stop this if we truly wanted to, and we truly recognize our influence as as the American people, if we are not bound by partisan lines. So I'll leave it there for today. Thank you for tuning in, guys. I appreciate you all continuing to fight for all of this and continuing to be, brave enough to strike out in a time which it's intense. I get it, but it matters. In my experience and my feeling, it matters more than it ever has. But maybe that's just how it feels right now, but there's something happening. I know we sense it, right? We all feel it. Stand up, get out there. I love you all. As always, question everything. Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.
Does it appear to you that they're attempting to deliberately facilitate the collapse of the U.S. dollar and in order to bring about this digital system? Or
No, I think they're trying to use this system to extend the life of the dollar. As soon as the Genius Act is ready to go into effect, you're going to have thousands of banks and fintech firms trying to get every person around the world off of their local currency into dollar stablecoins, to start trading little treasury bills through a crypto. The petrodollar may be over, but the dollar debt trap is far from over. If you're going to market stablecoins all over the world, not just to 325 million Americans, but to as many of the 8 billion people, then you're going to have the capacity to archive all that data somewhere. So that's number one. But the other thing is, if you look at spatial control requires a lot of video. You're taking pictures of people. You've got flock cameras. So you need, lots of software bots and agents going back and forth, helping not only collect that data and surveillance, but then turn it into a social credit system that can be used to implement, travel control and labor control and financial control. That's a huge amount of data. And that's what you need these massive data centers for.